Chapter 28-21. Amidst the original golden color, there was an inconspicuous touch of red. As for the aura, it was much more powerful. After Tianyun Bao's aura rose to the peak that he could activate, Night Sorrow continuously shot out the 5 elements virtuous arrows. They formed the 5 elements arrow formation and attacked Luan Chinha. City Lord Token, protect me. At this moment, Luan Chinha was still superstitious after the City Lord Token lost its blood energy. At the critical moment, he controlled the City Lord Token again to block the attack of the 5 elements arrow formation. However, it was obvious that Luan Chinha had underestimated the power of Tianyun Bao and the 5 elements arrow formation. Tianyun Bao, who was activated by so much blood, erupted with power that cultivators below the level of ruler could not withstand. But, with a loud bang, Luan Chinha's body was completely shattered under the attack of the 5 elements arrow formation and was annihilated in the void. The City Lord's token fell from the void. What was surprising was that the City Lord's token wasn't damaged in the slightest after being attacked by the 5-element arrow formation. This made Yishan extremely astonished. He reached out and took the City Lord token. After studying it for a while, he realized that the material of this thing was very special. It was cold to the touch and heavier than a mountain. Even Night Sorrow had to use one hand to barely hold him back. Luan Chinha was actually killed by Lord Night Sorrow. And it was such a straightforward instant kill? While Night Sorrow was studying the City Lord token, Mo Yen appeared from the void again. He had been hit by Luan Chinha's palm and was quite injured. There was some blood at the corner of his mouth. He is doomed to die for his sins. Night Sorrow replied casually. In fact, he could kill Luan Chinha so easily. It was directly related to the fact that the other party had absorbed a large amount of blood energy. If Tianyun Bao had not absorbed a large amount of blood energy, he would not have been able to kill Luan Chinha so thoroughly in one move. Yes, he deserved to die. Thinking of the many cultivators in the God Realm territory, Luan Chinha's face was filled with hatred. How can I use the ruler's token to leave this realm? At this moment, Night Sorrow came back to his senses and felt that it was better to leave this place. As for the ruler's token, it was no longer important what material it was made of. At the top of the broken bridge, just pour your divine essence energy into the City Lord token, Mo Yen said. At this moment, the Dragon Sparrow King and Phoenix King were both trembling with excitement. This was the moment that they had dreamed of for Night Sorrow. However, after hearing Mo Yan's words, he did not immediately activate the City Leader token on the broken bridge. Instead, they circled the entire small world. Luan Chinha had killed almost all of the high gods in the minor world. There were only a few divine sovereigns and a large number of high gods among the foreign creatures. He felt that this was too unfair to the remaining cultivators of the God Realm, so he killed all the foreign creatures above the Divine Feather Realm to balance out the strength of both sides. Then he returned to the broken bridge and activated the City Lord's token. Boom! The moment the City Lord token was activated, a huge rumbling sound rang out from the sky above the broken bridge. Then, as if a mountain had been cut open, a huge void gate appeared in the void. We're finally leaving this place. Seeing the huge void appear, the Dragon Sparrow King in the clear sky pagoda actually shed tears of excitement. The Phoenix King's eyes were also misty. They had been guarding the ancestor Phoenix and had grown from ordinary sparrows to giants like the Divine King. However, what they yearned for the most was freedom. Mo Yen was the same. When he saw Night Sorrow activate the City Lord token, he trembled and said to Night Sorrow, Mo Yen, thanks Lord Night Sorrow for saving my life. From now on, I will serve you forever. Let's go. Night Sorrow did not refute Mo Yan's words. He glanced at him and walked through the sky gate. After bringing Mo Yen through the sky gate, Night Sorrow returned to the place where he had started. Seeing Huo Feng, who was an upper god king, he said, Since I came out of the trial, does that mean I've passed the trial? Yes, you have succeeded. The Fire Phoenix nodded in response. She then smiled and said, Next, I'll take you to receive the opportunity left behind by the Lord. No need. My 2 companions, how are they now? Did you succeed in passing the trial? Night Sorrow was naturally interested in the opportunity left behind by the ancestor Phoenix. However, he wanted to give it to Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei. Moreover, after experiencing so many battles, he was also a bit worried for the 2 of them, fearing that they would encounter terrifying opponents. You don't have to worry about them. Compared to the difficulty of your challenge, they didn't encounter a test at all. Phoenix explained, They both have the Phoenix bloodline and are the descendants of the ancestor Phoenix. In fact, you're the only one who received the test. I see. How long will it take for them to receive the inheritance? Night Sorrow continued to ask. He wanted to wait for the two to come out before sharing the inheritance with them. However, before the Fire Phoenix could reply, the Fire Phoenix in the Clear Sky Pagoda sent a voice transmission to Yishang while shedding tears. Sir Yishang, let me out. All right. Come on out. Phoenix opened her mouth tearfully. Night Sorrow was a little surprised at first, then immediately understood something. Very clearly she and Phoenix should be old acquaintances. The Phoenix who originally wanted to open her mouth and explain the problem to Night Sorrow saw Phoenix's figure appear from the vast heaven pagoda. Her eyes immediately became wet too. She asked with a trembling voice, "Little sister?" "Big brother." Phoenix, who came out of the vast heaven pagoda, directly threw herself into Phoenix's embrace. It turned out that they were actually brother and sister. After the brother and sister exchanged a few tearful greetings, Hua Huang immediately told Hua Huang about how Yishang had rescued her. Hearing this, the Phoenix who transformed into human form immediately knelt down in front of Night Sorrow. "Phoenix thanks Lord Night Sorrow for saving my sister's grace." "Leader Phoenix, you don't have to be polite." Night Sorrow immediately helped her up politely. The Phoenix who was helped up opened her mouth again and said, "Lord Night Sorrow and your two friends, after cultivating Phoenix's mission is already completed. At that time I'll follow Lord Night Sorrow." "Good. If possible, I'll bring you guys to find Lord Supreme Ancestor Phoenix." Hearing Phoenix's words, Night Sorrow immediately recalled the matter of the Eternal Supreme World. At present he was already a high-ranked Divine Lord and was already very close to the Divine King realm. If there were no accidents, when he reached the Divine King realm and cultivated a clone, he would be guided to the Eternal Supreme World. Good. Phoenix yearns for it. The Phoenix who originally thought that after Night Sorrow took her in, she would fight in the Divine Realm. Hearing Night Sorrow say so, she immediately became excited. Phoenix also looks forward to meeting Lord Supreme again. Phoenix was the same. Different from the others in the Divine Realm, they were clear that Supreme Ancestor Phoenix still existed. It was just that she was fighting in other realms. Chapter 28-22. They all missed the Ancestor Phoenix who had changed their fates. As soon as they heard that they could see her again, they couldn't contain their excitement. Back when they'd been with the Ancestor Phoenix, they hadn't developed much intelligence. Now they were all divine kings. Although they hadn't reached the peak of the God realm, they were clearly no longer ordinary. Night Sorrow had taken them in as his subordinates. The number of divine kings in the immortal divine realm was quite impressive, and most of them were hidden in the shadows. If anyone dared to provoke the immortal divine realm, they'd be dealt a fatal blow. The immortal divine realm was stronger than anyone could imagine. As long as a ruler didn't interfere, it was impregnable. If he kept the divine kings by his side, the immortal divine realm would continue to be strong. However, Night Sorrow felt that if they showed themselves, it would affect Night Moon's determination to work hard. After all, comfort was the cause of a person's downfall. Afterwards, the others explained the Ancestor Phoenix's matter to Night Sorrow. Flame Phoenix said, "Lord Night Sorrow, your two friends are receiving a bloodline inheritance. This process will take a long time, at least 1,000 years, and at most a few epochs. You can't just wait here. Why don't you go and receive the bloodline inheritance? Milord once said that the resources are not to be shared." "Not to be shared? What do you mean?" Night Sorrow asked in confusion. "Milord said that the rewards vary from person to person." "Your rewards aren't suitable for others?" Flame Phoenix said. The Fire Phoenix said and continued, "Oh right. Lord Night Sorrow once said that you'd like some parasol grass. I'll go get it for you right away." "Then I'll have to trouble you, Flame Phoenix," Night Sorrow said politely. "Sister, come with me. Big brother has some things to say to you." Flame Phoenix and Night Sorrow nodded, then brought Flame Phoenix with them to gather the parasol grass. They had entered a different spatial world. This spatial world was where the Ancestor Phoenix had once cultivated. After entering the space, Huafeng immediately said, "Little sister, I'm sorry. This is where Sir used to cultivate. Although the Wudong tree has been taken away, there is still a lot of Wudong grass here. We can help Sir get a few. As for the other opportunities, let's not take them." "Of course. Huang is already satisfied to be able to see Big Brother." The Fire Phoenix King replied with a hint of satisfaction between her brows. "Furthermore, the two of us have already washed away all the impurities and become true members of the Phoenix clan. What more can I ask for?" "Of course it's to become a sovereign. Only by becoming sovereigns can we truly welcome a new life. Gain a foothold in the eternal supreme world. The flame phoenix said in a matter-of-fact manner. These words had been revealed to him by the ancestral phoenix supreme being, and he had deeply engraved them in his heart. Good. Let's work together. Fire Phoenix replied and continued, Lord Night Sorrow's luck is exceedingly high. We shouldn't be wrong to follow him. When she first stood in Night Sorrow's camp, Fire Phoenix was actually not convinced at all. However, after seeing Night Sorrow's boldness and methods, she gradually became convinced. Little sister, you're right. You're right. Lord Phoenix Ancestor once said that Lord Night Sorrow would become a supreme existence one day. At this point, Huofeng suddenly stopped and didn't say anything else. Together with Fire Phoenix, she helped Night Sorrow pick 9 wutong grass. After the two of them returned and handed the wutong grass to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow thanked them, Thank you for your hard work. Lord Night Sorrow, it's nothing. Huofeng replied politely and continued, Lord Night Sorrow, do you still have the token you used to pass the trial? Yes. After replying, Yishang handed over the City Lord token. Huofeng took the City Lord token and examined it in her hand. She said, Sir, obtain this item from that realm. The level of the material is higher than the sovereign level. Lord Night Sorrow can smelt it into a divine weapon. What? Beyond the sovereign level? Isn't that a sovereign level material? No wonder even a sovereign level artifact's attack didn't work on it. Night Sorrow was extremely shocked when he heard Huofeng's words. The token in front of him could very well be the strongest material in the realm of the gods. Should I merge it into Tianyun Bao or the heavenly Samsara halberd? From the perspective of raising one's strength, adding this material to the celestial cloud Bao would definitely bring about great benefits. However, in terms of feelings, Night Sorrow still hoped to merge it into the heavenly Samsara halberd. He wanted to forge the heavenly Samsara halberd into a sovereign level artifact. Therefore he hesitated for a moment. At this moment, Huofeng said, Lord Night Sorrow, anything below the level of a sovereign level artifact won't be able to withstand this sovereign level material. In my opinion, why don't you merge it into the sovereign level artifact? After you smelt it, the sovereign level artifact might completely recognize you as its master. It might even produce an artifact spirit. Is that so? If Tianyun Bao could produce an artifact spirit or completely recognize him as its master, it would undoubtedly increase Night Sorrow's combat strength to a heaven-defying level. After thinking about it for a moment, Night Sorrow decided to toss it into the sovereign artifact, Heavenly Cloud Bao. Lord, you can enter Lord Ancestor Phoenix's cultivation ground. Only that place can withstand it. As for us, we won't be going in. Lord Ancestor Phoenix has already prepared the opportunities inside for you. The Fire Phoenix said, then sent Night Sorrow to the Ancestor Phoenix's former cultivation ground. After entering the real Ancestor Phoenix's lair, Night Sorrow immediately felt a vast aura. The aura contained within the aura was not something some sovereigns could possess. Night Sorrow was immediately moved. He felt that this was a great aura. Tianyun Bao, let's begin. Standing in the Ancestor Phoenix's lair and feeling the stability of the space, Night Sorrow immediately felt that Huofeng's words made sense. Choosing this place to smelt the sovereign level artifact was clearly the best choice. He did not hesitate and immediately threw the City Lord token into Tianyun Bao. The moment this supreme level material was thrown into Tianyun Bao, a scene actually occurred. Whether it was Tianyun Bao or this material, they all fused together and turned into a liquid. The energy contained within the liquid made Night Sorrow's heart palpitate. At this moment, even a drop of this liquid could seriously injure him. Its power was simply unparalleled. Should I restore Tianyun Bao or create a spear? Looking at the materials in front of him, Night Sorrow's thoughts moved. However, in the end he did not change Tianyun Bao's appearance. This was because Tianyun Bao was the Tianyun school's most precious artifact. It was not good for him to change its appearance without permission. Even so, after Tianyun Bao was formed again, it immediately produced a new artifact spirit. It was a vague little life that had just been born and was very fragile. Chapter 28-23. It was a feeling of intimacy. Night Sorrow could clearly sense the little life's thoughts. When it was first born, it was at a loss, but a moment later, it sensed Night Sorrow's presence. A blurry figure appeared on the strengthened Tianyun Bao. Night Sorrow soon sensed the tiny life form's hunger and fed it some blood. However, the newly born spirit automaton had no interest in blood. Night Sorrow fed it a few more things, and after confirming that it liked divine crystals, he took out a large quantity and began feeding it. Gradually, the spirit automaton's aura rose from the winged god level to the great god level. Your aura has reached the great god level. Do you understand what I mean? I want to give you a name. What do you think? After Bai Shaoqi stopped devouring divine crystals for the time being, Night Sorrow said. At the same time he sensed that Tianyun Bao was under his control. All right. The spirit automaton replied vaguely. Clearly, after becoming a great god, it had gained some intelligence, but its speech was unclear. It sounded like a child talking. Your Tianyun Bao spirit automaton. How about I call you Little Sky? What do you think? Yishan asked in a questioning tone. Little Sky. My name is Little Sky. The spirit automaton didn't resist receiving a name. On the contrary, it was a bit excited. After that, Night Sorrow communicated with it briefly and confirmed that it needed to consume large amounts of divine crystals or natural treasures to advance. Only when it reached the divine king or sovereign level would it be able to fight alongside Night Sorrow. For now, Night Sorrow had to rely on his own strength to use Tianyun Bao. Night Sorrow was a bit surprised. After all, he had never seen the spirit automaton of a sovereign-level artifact. He had thought that Tianyun Bao's spirit automaton would have the aura of a sovereign-level artifact. I wonder what kind of opportunity the Ancestor Phoenix left behind. After communicating with Little Sky, Night Sorrow began searching the lesser world for opportunities left behind by the Ancestor Phoenix. However, after searching for almost a month, he didn't find anything at all. Even the wudong grass was nowhere to be found. On this day, Night Sorrow began to use the Eye of the Sea Serpent again. He searched carefully but he didn't find anything. He couldn't sense anything with his divine soul either. He was sure that the Ancestral Phoenix didn't leave anything behind, so he prepared to go to the Ancestral Phoenix's nest immediately. Ah! Night Sorrow, aren't you going to look for more time? Just as Yi Shang was about to leave, a faintly discernible voice was heard in the void. Soon after, the blurry image of Supreme Ancestor Phoenix appeared in the void. There was a faint smile between his brows. Lord Supreme. Upon seeing Supreme Ancestor Phoenix, Night Sorrow was immediately surprised. Night Sorrow, now that you have cultivated to the level of a high divine lord, you are not far from becoming a divine king. Are you prepared to leave? Supreme Phoenix Ancestor went straight to the point. Clearly he had a reason for staying here. To be honest, I'm not completely prepared. I can't bear to part with my family. However, the God realm needs it. I, Night Sorrow, am duty-bound. Night Sorrow was silent for a moment before replying. Sigh. At this moment, Supreme Ancestor Phoenix sighed and said, if it wasn't for the fact that the God world is declining day by day in the eternal Supreme world and is threatening the existence of the entire God world, we old fellows wouldn't be giving you so much pressure. If we don't give you time to grow, we are useless. Lord Supreme, don't say that. Night Sorrow has no intention of resisting. Night Sorrow replied and asked, you said that the situation of the God realm over there isn't optimistic? The number one expert of the God realm has disappeared in a temple and hasn't appeared for nearly an epoch. The neighboring realms are already restless and might join forces to destroy us at any time. If we don't nurture a top combat power, the God realm will be completely destroyed. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said and then continued, the crisis that the God realm is facing is very similar to the situation you faced when you were trying to break through. First, they are not strong enough. Second, people's hearts are not what they used to be. Some people have already gone astray. It seems that the situation in the eternal supreme world is indeed critical. It's a pity that with my strength, there's no way for me to quickly advance to the sovereign level. With just a few words from Supreme Ancestor Phoenix, Night Sorrow could feel how difficult it was to enter the God realm in the eternal supreme world. At this moment he felt that his strength was still rising a little slowly. Although it was already a miraculous existence in the God realm, it was still too weak in the eternal supreme world. If one didn't have the strength of a sovereign, one wouldn't have any sense of existence at all. Don't worry, your strength is rising quickly. Besides, we have already arranged a path for you over there. As long as you can persevere to the end, you will definitely be able to turn the tide when you descend again. After Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said this, he continued, however, you are someone that we have our eyes on. There are also other Supremes who have their eyes on others, so you will have to face competition. Only the strongest among you will be able to receive unreserved support. They went there earlier than you and some of them have even advanced to the sovereign level. However, your potential is greater than theirs. We won't be wrong. There are actually sovereign-level opponents. Hearing this, Night Sorrow immediately felt a trace of pressure. But then he asked doubtfully, isn't their strength also a blessing for the God realm? It's not the same. Not every Supremes wants to protect the God realm. Some only think about themselves. Supreme Ancestor Phoenix revealed some more information, and his phantom gradually weakened. Understanding that time was running out, he immediately threw a brocade bag to Night Sorrow. He said, "Take it. This is the material needed to cultivate a clone. Time is tight, so there's no need to look for resources everywhere. Night Sorrow will break through to the Divine King as soon as possible." Night Sorrow, who received the brocade bag, replied, "In addition, Night Sorrow will settle the matters of the God realm in the near future." "Good. When you cultivate a clone, we will personally come to pick you up," Supreme Ancestor Phoenix said once more before vanishing into thin air. "The responsibility is great." After Supreme Ancestor Phoenix's figure completely disappeared, scenes flashed through Night Sorrow's mind one after another. Those unfinished things flashed through his mind continuously. For example, rescuing Mo Yuqian and the others, setting up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Formation, the Dark Abyss Summoning Formation, and refining a clone. In addition to these, there was also the chaos of the Cloud Fairy continent. After leaving the Ancestral Phoenix's nest, Night Sorrow reappeared in front of the Fire Phoenix siblings and the Dragon Sparrow King. He said, "If nothing unexpected happens, I will go to the Cloud Fairy continent to quell the chaos there. Then I will go to the Nine Heavens Shrine. Does anyone want to go with me?" "I'll go." Chapter 28-24. After Dragon Sparrow King spoke, Mo Yen, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, said, "I'll go too." Fire Phoenix King looked at Fire Phoenix King and said, "Brother, you stay here and guard Night Sorrow's family. I'll go with him." "Okay, go. Take your brother's strength with you," Fire Phoenix King said, and handed Fire Phoenix dozens of divine talismans that he had accumulated over the years. "Okay, I won't embarrass you." Fire Phoenix King took the divine talismans from Fire Phoenix King and bowed to him. Then she entered Night Sorrow's Clear Sky Pagoda with Dragon Sparrow King and the others. After taking them in, Night Sorrow looked at Fire Phoenix and said, "Night Sorrow is pressed for time. I can't wait any longer. Brother Fire Phoenix, please take care of my family." "Don't worry, Lord Night Sorrow. I'll take good care of your family." Fire Phoenix King was very respectful to Night Sorrow. He cupped his fists and replied. Yishang chuckled when he saw Huofeng's gaze. "I'll take good care of Huofeng as well." "Thank you, Lord Night Sorrow." Fire Phoenix, whose thoughts were seen through by Yishang, also laughed. "If you have nothing else to say, we'll leave now." Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda when he was about to leave. "Now let's go." Dragon Sparrow King and the others did not say anything. Fire Phoenix King and Fire Phoenix King had already bid farewell, so there was nothing else to say. After that, Night Sorrow left Jing Yun and Wu Lingfei a letter each and rushed back to the immortal divine realm. To his surprise, the Domain Master's manner was very lively. His son Yi Xiaoke had returned and was talking to his concubines. "Xiaoke, you're back." After descending slowly from the void to the Domain Master's manor, Night Sorrow immediately walked into the living room where Yi Xiaoke and Night Sorrow's wives were. "Father, I'm back." Seeing Night Sorrow return, Yi Xiaoke immediately got up from his chair and knelt on the ground. "Xiaoke, what's wrong with you?" Night Sorrow, who was originally very happy, immediately frowned when he saw Yi Xiaoke's face. At this moment, when Yi Xiaoke saw him return, he actually shed tears. "Father, it's Xiaoke's fault for not being able to save our old friend. Let them be captured by the enemy," Yi Xiaoke said regretfully. "What's going on? Tell me." Night Sorrow's heart immediately clenched when he heard those words. As Yi Xiaoke explained the situation, Night Sorrow immediately understood. When Yi Xiaoke was returning to the immortal divine realm, he happened to encounter Tran Hung and King Ye Wu being targeted by a powerful Sir God. Yi Xiaoke tried his best to fight back but was defeated by the opponent. He had to use all his strength to escape. Tran Hung, martial uncle, was captured. What's the name of that divine lord? After listening to Yi Xiaoke's description, anger appeared on Night Sorrow's face. "Father, that person is called Sir God Gung Long from the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence. Uncle Jin Ye went to ask for them, but not only did he fail, but he was also injured by a divine king," Yi Xiaoke continued. "Xiaoke, rest well with your aunts. I'll bring Tran Hung and martial uncle back." After hearing Yi Xiaoke's words, Night Sorrow completely understood the cause and effect of this matter. It turned out that this was all because of the great All-Heaven Ruler. It was no wonder that Yi Xiaoke and Jin Ye were helpless. Although he was furious, Night Sorrow knew that this wasn't Yi Shao's fault. After comforting him, he took Jin Ye to the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence. Who dares to behave atrociously in front of the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence? Night Sorrow's figure had just appeared in front of the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence when he was chided by the guards. Say that Night Sorrow is here to see the great All-Heaven Ruler. Night Sorrow said coldly as he glanced at the two high god guards. Bastard! Do you think the Great Lord is someone you can meet just because you want to? The two guards smiled disdainfully as they berated Luo Yunyang. Go inform him or die. Night Sorrow immediately released his terrifying godly domain and forced the two high god guards to kneel on the ground. You dare to make a move in the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence? You must be tired of living. One of the high gods was forced to the ground by Night Sorrow, looking completely indignant. It was obvious that he was used to being arrogant, so he dared to show off his strength in front of a divine lord. Who dares to behave so atrociously in the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence? After Night Sorrow made his move, two divine lords immediately rushed out of the great All-Heaven Ruler's residence. When they saw Night Sorrow, they immediately berated him. Night Sorrow requests an audience with the great All-Heaven Ruler. Please go and report this, Yi Shang said word by word. The importance of Tran Hung and King Yanwu went without saying. Even if he had to face the great All-Heaven Ruler, Night Sorrow wouldn't cower. Night Sorrow? You are Night Sorrow. You are the enemy who killed my father. When they heard Night Sorrow's name, one of the handsome divine lords flew into a rage. His father was the divine King Qingtian, who had been killed in the great All-Heaven Spirit Gathering array while attacking Night Sorrow. Upon hearing this, Yi Shang said coldly, I don't know who your father is. Immediately report to the Overlord of the All-Heaven that Yi Shang requests an audience. You want me to inform the Great Lord on your behalf? Dream on. Divine Lord Qingyan's face was filled with hatred as he taunted, if you have the ability, why don't you barge in? I can't be bothered to talk nonsense with you. Great All-Heaven Ruler, come out. Night Sorrow, whose patience had run out, gathered his divine origin energy and shouted. He knew that Luo Tian would definitely hear him. Who is it? How dare you call the great All-Heaven Ruler by his name? Are you tired of living? Or is the Great Lord here? Everyone in Luo Tian City was in disbelief when they heard someone call Luo Tian by his name. Soon, many cultivators gathered near the great All-Heaven Ruler's manor to watch the show. However, Luo Tian didn't appear even after Night Sorrow had called him 3 times. If you don't come out, I will destroy your great lord's manor. Luo Tian clearly didn't want to appear. Night Sorrow shouted and took out the Tianyun Bao from his spatial artifact. The Tianyun Bao had been strengthened by a supreme-grade material and had completely recognized Night Sorrow as its master. As he held the Heaven Cloud Bao, Yi Shang felt a sense of familiarity that he had never felt before. How dare you? Do you think you can do as you please in my great All-Heaven Ruler's manor? Since the establishment of the great All-Heaven Ruler's manor, no one has dared to come here and shout. Just as Night Sorrow was about to make a move, the divine king of the great All-Heaven Ruler's manor appeared with his men. Soon, 2 other divine kings appeared. The 3 divine kings surrounded Night Sorrow. They all looked hostile and ready to attack at any moment. Hand over my 2 friends or let Luo Tian come out. Otherwise, the 3 of you won't be kind today. Night Sorrow, who was surrounded by the 3 divine kings, didn't panic at all. Chapter 28-25. Good. I know. Is the divine weapon he used the same as the one you used in the last battle? Yi Shang asked when he heard Jin Ye's voice transmission. In his memories, Jin Ye and the Azura God King had fought before. It's different. It's definitely different. His divine weapon is very special. You must be careful, Governor. Jin Ye had wanted to call him Lord Night Sorrow, but after some thought, he felt that calling him Governor was more appropriate. Don't worry, I'll be careful. It's obvious that Luo Tian is plotting against me. Night Sorrow nodded and looked at the Divine King. It's hard for us to resolve this peacefully? I'm afraid you're the one who's hard to resolve. You're the first person to cause trouble in front of the sovereign's residence, and you'll be the last. The Divine King looked sinister as if he wanted to tear Night Sorrow to shreds. The other 2 Divine Kings had an indescribable look in their eyes. It felt as if they'd already predicted that Night Sorrow would come. Since you've already devised a countermeasure, show me what you've got. I'll definitely take my friend with me. Night Sorrow looked at the 3 Divine Kings with a cold expression. Tran Hung and King Yowu were extremely important elders to him. Whether he was facing the divine king or the sovereign, he had to rescue them. He wouldn't back down in the slightest. How dare a divine emperor be so arrogant? Let's go. The divine king's face darkened when he heard Night Sorrow's words. He roared and took out a fan-shaped divine weapon from his spatial artifact. He slapped it viciously at Night Sorrow. When this fan-shaped divine weapon was fanned out, it didn't cause any wind to blow. However, Yishan felt as if his soul was about to be blown out of his body. It was extremely uncomfortable. Ah! How dare a puny divine emperor be so arrogant? The two of you don't have to be courteous. If you have the chance, kill him in an instant. Hegemon Tianai said that no one at the hegemon level was allowed to touch him, but he never mentioned anything about the divine king. Everyone, don't hold back. Don't worry. We won't hold back. The divine king smirked coldly. As for the other divine king, he didn't say anything, but he radiated a powerful aura. The All-Heaven Sovereign had recently introduced him to the Azura Divine King and Graceful Divine King. His temper was a little strange. He never spoke and gave people an extremely dangerous feeling. Although the Divine King of Azura acted as if he was in charge of his work, he was secretly afraid of this strange and nameless Divine King. Domain Lord, this is the move. Be careful of your soul. At this time, Jin Ye saw the Divine King of Azura attack and immediately warned. Night Sorrow, who had already sensed the damage to his soul, fused his two bodies together and forcibly resisted the Divine King's feather fan. As expected, he's not simple. I can't give him the chance to keep attacking. Although he had blocked the Divine King of Azura's attack, Night Sorrow didn't underestimate him. With the feather fan divine artifact in front of him, the Divine King of Azura, who wasn't all that strong, immediately became much more of a threat. As this thought flashed through his mind, Night Sorrow put away the Tianyun Bao. Wielding the Samsara halberd, he fired a forbidden shot at the Divine King of Azura. The power of this shot was enough to threaten the Divine King of Azura. The Divine King of Azura clearly couldn't resist it. Save me. Realizing that he couldn't resist this move, the Divine King of Azura immediately cried for help. Don't panic. We're here. The Divine King of Azura responded. Then, he brandished the giant sword in his hand and slashed at Night Sorrow. He wanted to help the Divine King of Azura block this attack. Intermediate Divine King, you want to block the forbidden shot? You've misjudged your own strength. Seeing the Divine King of Azura block his attack for the Divine King of Azura, Night Sorrow immediately fired the forbidden shot at his opponent. To him, it didn't matter which one he dealt with first. Not good. Night Sorrow, be careful. But at this time, Fire Phoenix in the Clear Sky Pagoda suddenly warned. It turned out that the silent Divine King of Azura had circled behind Night Sorrow and was preparing to attack him. Even someone as sharp as Night Sorrow didn't notice this. It was Fire Phoenix in the Clear Sky Pagoda who saw the Divine King of Azura about to attack. When Night Sorrow reacted, he was about to stop immediately, but it was obviously too late. His spear suddenly sent the Divine King of Azura flying. But he was also hit by the ghost-like Divine King of Azura. After being hit in the back, Night Sorrow's protective divine domain was immediately penetrated. He also suffered a very serious attack. If not for Tianyun Bao protecting him, he would probably have been killed by this terrifying palm. Who are you? The heavily injured Night Sorrow recovered a little and looked at the Divine King of Azura in front of him. This person was 7 feet tall and had a decent appearance. He looked like a rare handsome man, but his face was always deep and expressionless. He hadn't said a word since he appeared. At this time he used his divine soul to lock onto him. Night Sorrow was shocked. Because although this Divine King of Azura in front of him deliberately concealed his aura, his true strength was obviously above the Yin Demon King's. This was too terrifying. It's impossible. If the ruler of all heaven had such a Divine King, he would have come to deal with me long ago. He wouldn't have stayed until now. After confirming the other party's strength, Night Sorrow was puzzled. All this time, although he didn't know much about the divine realm, he knew that all heaven didn't have such a powerful Divine King. I'm the person who will kill you. After Night Sorrow spoke, the Divine King of Azura's face revealed an unnatural sneer. He coldly used his divine soul to send a message. Then he used his ultimate technique and attacked Night Sorrow again. This time, the Divine King of Azura didn't launch a sneak attack, but it brought more pressure to Night Sorrow. That kind of pressure had faintly surpassed the Divine King's level and was approaching the ruler level. Amazing. The Divine King of Azura, who didn't know much about the Divine King of Azura, shouted and waved the feather fan in his hand at the same time. Lord Night Sorrow, Let us go out and lend you a hand. Seeing Night Sorrow being attacked by such a powerful divine king, Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Sky Pagoda, immediately became anxious. Jinya also asked for battle. Domain Master let Jinya out to fight. Fire Phoenix King and Mo Yen did the same. The 4 divine kings all asked for battle. At this time Night Sorrow shook his head and said, "No. I dare to fight here because of ruler Chinya's words. All heaven doesn't dare to touch me. If you fight here you will be instantly killed." After replying to everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda, Night Sorrow took out the Tianyun Bow and the Sky Cloud Arrow and shot them at the Divine King of Azura to resist his attack. He's finally using the ruler-level divine weapon. Chapter 28-26. Why do I feel so evil? There's definitely something wrong with this divine king. When Yi Shang saw the nameless God King's disdainful expression, an ominous feeling flashed through his heart. Because no divine king would have such an expression when facing a dominator divine weapon. Boom. When the heavenly cloud arrow collided with the divine king's attack, the void exploded. Night Sorrow's mood became even more solemn. The divine king took the heavenly cloud arrow head-on and actually withstood it completely, not suffering any injuries. Although the combat strength he displayed seemed similar to the Een Demon King's, Night Sorrow's combat strength seemed to be on the same level as the Een Demon King. But in reality, Night Sorrow felt that he was clearly in a state of ease, and he still had a lot of strength left. Ants will always be ants. With the strength of a divine lord, you can't unleash the power of a dominator divine weapon. After the divine king took the heavenly cloud arrow head-on, an even colder and more arrogant expression appeared between his brows. You are very strong and you might even be close to the dominator level. But today I must bring back my family. Night Sorrow originally wanted to say friends, but after thinking about it he felt that Tran Hung and King Yowu were already in the category of family. After saying that, he took out 5 heavenly cloud arrows and shot them at the divine king. Now that God King Violent Grace was heavily injured, Night Sorrow was prepared to deal with the threat of the Azura God King in a fit of rage. Then he would fight the nameless God King. You want to kill the divine king in front of this king? Dream on. The divine king saw Night Sorrow shoot the 5 elements arrow at the divine king, but he was not afraid and once again faced it. Boom. What surprised everyone in the Clear Heaven Pagoda was that the divine king was still uninjured after taking the 5 elements arrow head-on. That terrifying combat strength already made people's hearts palpitate. That's impossible. This is absolutely impossible. How could he have caught the 5-element arrow so easily? Within the Clear Heaven Pagoda, the Dragon Sparrow King was well aware of the might of the 5-element arrow. Seeing that the divine king was able to catch the 5-element arrow without suffering any damage, he was so shocked that his jaw dropped. Fire Phoenix King, who was also clear about the power of the 5 elements arrow, frowned and said, "The current Tianyun Bao has already been strengthened by the Supreme City Lord token. The current 5 elements arrow is definitely more terrifying than before. However, he was able to catch it so easily. This means that he is most likely a dominator. Lord Night Sorrow, you have to be careful. If you really can't do it, then retreat. If I can't bring back Tran Hung and Martial Uncle today, I won't leave no matter what." Night Sorrow was naturally aware of the strength of the nameless divine king, but his attitude was very firm. He had no intention of backing down. According to his judgment, this nameless divine king was very strange. He seemed to be very clear about the power of a dominator. Even if he wasn't a dominator, he must have absorbed a large amount of dominator laws. His strength was at least a half-step dominator. However, Night Sorrow had seen a dominator before, so he knew that his opponent was definitely not a dominator. As long as he wasn't a dominator, then he had a chance of defeating him. Ah, how is it, Ant? You're just a divine sovereign ant. Do you really think you're a big shot in the divine realm? After the nameless divine king spoke, it seemed that he couldn't hold back anymore. He said disdainfully, "Prepare to accept your fate of death." At the same time, he stretched out his hand and slapped at Night Sorrow. The energy contained in this palm was clearly above the level of the divine king. Its power was extremely terrifying. Lord Night Sorrow, be careful. Seeing the nameless divine king suddenly unleash such a terrifying attack, Dragon Sparrow King, who was in the Clear Heaven Pagoda, immediately shouted, "Don't worry. With the divine talisman you gave me, this move can't hurt me." Night Sorrow had actually held back when he shot the 5 elements arrow. However, he knew that the nameless divine king's attack was extremely terrifying. It was best not to take it head-on. He immediately used the speed talisman that Dragon Sparrow King had refined, increasing his speed by several times. Furthermore, he didn't hesitate to activate the Treastrimsa Battle Mystic technique. This time he activated all of it without holding back at all. After Night Sorrow increased his strength, he also completely activated Tianyun Bao. In the attack just now, Night Sorrow had only used the state he had before fusing with the City Lord token. He hadn't completely unleashed his power. Now he had raised his strength to the maximum. Bang! Facing the nameless Divine King's palm, Night Sorrow shot out another heavenly cloud arrow. Boom! This heavenly cloud arrow collided with the nameless Divine King's palm, causing the void to explode again. That shocking power made the Shura Divine King and startled Divine King extremely terrified. The trembling from their souls made them not dare to continue staying in place. They fled to a safe area and watched from the sidelines. They didn't dare to continue attacking. The two of them knew that the current Night Sorrow was completely capable of killing them. I didn't see it. You're still holding back. But so what? All Heaven Divine Palm. Seeing Night Sorrow's strength increase to such a level in an instant, the nameless Divine King's expression changed. Then he raised his aura by another level. Suddenly he sent another palm toward Night Sorrow. This palm was one of the All-Heaven Ruler's ultimate techniques, the All-Heaven Divine Palm. All-Heaven Divine Palm? Facing the Divine King's ultimate technique, Night Sorrow's heart trembled as a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He guessed that the Divine King in front of him was very likely the All-Heaven Ruler in disguise. If he really was the All-Heaven Ruler, then even with Tianyun Bao's protection he definitely wouldn't be a match for him. I don't care if you're the ruler or not. I won't back down today. At this thought, Night Sorrow felt that if his opponent really was the All-Heaven Ruler, Ruler Tianai wouldn't just sit by and watch. Facing the All-Heaven Divine Palm, he shot out another 5 elements arrow. This time, the power of the 5-element arrow was clearly several times stronger than the previous one. What's going on? The same arrow moved, but the difference in power is so great. Facing Night Sorrow's 5 elements arrow again, the nameless Divine King was very surprised. He had been prepared for Night Sorrow's sudden increase in strength, but he hadn't expected him to be able to instantly increase his strength to this extent. With a loud boom, the two of them clashed and ended in a draw. Reveal your true face. While the 5 elements arrow and All-Heaven Divine Palm clashed, Night Sorrow, who had increased his speed, used the profound dragon roaming steps to close in and attack with the Samsara halberd. At this moment, Night Sorrow guessed that the Divine King in front of him was the All-Heaven Ruler in disguise and wanted to expose his identity. Face? What face? In the face of Night Sorrow's questioning, the nameless Divine King sneered and once again erupted in battle with Night Sorrow. His speed was even faster than Night Sorrow's. This wasn't the strength that the Divine King should have. In comparison, an expert like the Yin Demon King was simply too weak to withstand a single blow. If it had been Night Sorrow in the past, he wouldn't have been a match for the nameless Divine King at all. However, after using the Nirvana Rebirth technique, his body's strength had increased once again, becoming more and more perfect. Chapter 28-27. Now that he had unleashed his full strength, everyone in the Clear Sky Pagoda was astonished. They understood that Night Sorrow hadn't unleashed his full strength when facing City Lord Luan Chinha and the others. Now, his Nirvana power was being displayed. Fire Phoenix, who understood how powerful this power was, immediately said excitedly, Lord Night Sorrow should be able to put up a fight. His Nirvana power is 10 times stronger than mine. Although Lord Night Sorrow hasn't advanced to the Divine King level, his strength should be able to crush the Divine King. If the Divine King in front of us isn't a god, he definitely won't be his match. Mo Yin, who hadn't spoken for a long time, also made his judgment. Divine King's dragon-locking formation. In the process of fighting against the Divine King, Night Sorrow had unleashed the power he had obtained after undergoing Nirvana. When he unleashed his full strength, he could already crush the Divine King. And during the process of fighting he had locked the Divine King within. The Divine King, who was fighting against Night Sorrow with all his strength, didn't have the time to tear through the defense of the sealed space. He could only sullenly fight against Night Sorrow. After fighting for a while, Night Sorrow discovered that this was the Divine King's weakness. Although he was very strong, his body didn't seem to be very strong. When fighting against Night Sorrow, although he could unleash powerful strength, he clearly couldn't withstand Night Sorrow's attacks. It didn't take long for him to change his appearance. As they fought, Night Sorrow discovered that his opponent's body was becoming smaller and smaller. Could you really be the ruler of all heaven in disguise? No, if you are the ruler of all heaven, you can't have such strength. You are the clone of the ruler of all heaven. Suddenly, Night Sorrow's mind came to a complete realization. The divine king in front of him was very likely the clone of the ruler of all heaven. Only his clone could erupt with such strength. What nonsense are you talking about? All Heaven's sovereign avatar, who was still fighting Night Sorrow, immediately denied it when Night Sorrow discovered this secret. I'm not afraid that you won't admit it. Watch me beat your clone back to its original form. Night Sorrow didn't waste any more words. He continued to attack the All-Heaven ruler's avatar. Bastard. Even this was discovered. I'm still hoping to use this clone to plunder some resources. The All-Heaven ruler, who had been seen through by Night Sorrow, was very unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. Are you still not going to admit it? As Night Sorrow continued to attack, he chuckled when he saw how flustered All-Heaven's sovereign clone was. Because of the pressure, the All-Heaven sovereign's clone was no longer as handsome as before. He was now short, and looked exactly the same as the All-Heaven sovereign's true self. Night Sorrow. If you dare to expose my clone, then I'll kill you, even if I have to ignore Hegemon Tianya's warning. Now that his identity had been exposed, the All-Heaven ruler's clone was furious. Now it seemed that not only had his identity been exposed, but his clone was also very likely to be captured by Night Sorrow. If his clone was captured by Night Sorrow, he would lose all face in the deity world. As a sovereign, All-Heaven couldn't accept this at all. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have targeted my family. Night Sorrow didn't take All-Heaven's threat to heart. He knew that All-Heaven didn't have the determination or ability to fight Hegemon Tianyi. However, he was very concerned about Chen Huang and King Yanwu's safety. He said coldly, I'll give you a chance. Release my 2 family members and give them sufficient compensation. Otherwise, you know the consequences. You dare to threaten me? No one has ever dared to speak to me like this. The All-Heaven ruler's clone was furious at Night Sorrow's threat. He roared from the sealed space. Aha! Don't think too highly of yourself. If I remember correctly, I was there when you were threatened by Hegemon Tianyi. Night Sorrow laughed when he heard the All-Heaven ruler's words. He was there when Hegemon Tianyi and Hegemon Voiceless Een warned All-Heaven and the others. All-Heaven's words were simply too shameless. What does the matters between sovereigns have to do with an ant like you? All-Heaven said angrily after being exposed by Night Sorrow. Every time he encountered Night Sorrow, he would be at a disadvantage. Now he was starting to doubt his life. It's the ant you speak of that is controlling this clone of yours. I won't waste words with you. Release my family immediately and compensate them accordingly. Otherwise, prepare to lose your reputation and be targeted by Hegemon Tianyi. Night Sorrow said coldly. Don't think that just because you used your clone to deal with me, you're not going against Hegemon Tianyi and Hegemon Voiceless Yin's warning. As long as I expose this matter, you know what the consequences will be. What compensation do you want? Although the All-Heaven ruler was furious, there was nothing he could do. Although his tone was unfriendly, he still chose to submit in the end. Night Sorrow smiled when he saw that All-Heaven had chosen to lower his head. Resources that can support the 2 of them to cultivate to the Divine King level. What? You're asking for too much. Why should I help you cultivate 2 Divine King levels? All-Heaven's face turned red when he heard Night Sorrow's words. He glared angrily. His main body in the ruler's residence was so angry that he almost attacked. However, when he thought of how terrifying Hegemon Tianyi and Hegemon Voiceless Een were, he didn't dare to do so. Because I think that way. Because you have no right to refute me. Night Sorrow, who had been tricked, said coldly. He didn't give All-Heaven a chance to refute at all. Although All-Heaven was angry when he heard Night Sorrow's words, he didn't have any right to show off. Although his tone was unpleasant, he still agreed. I'll do as you say. However, you can't expose that I have a clone. What? You still want to use this clone to do evil? Don't even think about it. Yi Shang replied without hesitation. Then he continued, I want your clone. If you have the ability, you can refine another one yourself. He didn't give All-Heaven a chance to retrieve his clone. You'll regret this. All-Heaven's clone, who had been silent for a while, said one last sentence. Then he completely disappeared from the array. He had self-destructed. Although this kind of self-destruction was powerful, he didn't target Night Sorrow. He had self-destructed. After that, Tran Hung and King Yawu were released from the ruler's residence. When Night Sorrow saw that Tran Hung and King Yo Wu weren't injured, he heaved a sigh of relief. Tears welled up in his eyes. After ascending from the lower realm to the deity realm, Night Sorrow and Night Moon's family had been targeted. Now they had completely established themselves in the deity realm. However, he would soon leave for the eternal supreme realm. Chapter 28. Martial nephew, what is your cultivation level now? What is your level in the divine world? After being released by the All-Heaven Sovereign Mansion, King Yo Wu saw Night Sorrow and chatted with him for a while. He told him about how he had ascended and how he had been captured. Then he asked about Night Sorrow's strength. Night Sorrow had deliberately restrained his aura, but he still gave people the feeling that he was like a dragon or a phoenix. He was very different from the feather gods who had just ascended. King Yo Wu and Tran Hung felt that it was difficult to breathe. Martial uncle. The cultivators in the divine world are divided into Feather God, High God, Sir God, Divine King and Sovereign. Every rank is further divided into lower, middle and upper. Now that you are a High God, if you are lucky, you should be able to become a Divine King soon. As Night Sorrow explained, he used the power of merit to protect King Yo Wu and Tran Hung. Qin Huang immediately felt a bit better, and a gratified smile appeared on his face as he said, Night Sorrow, you are a genius no matter where you go. How long has it been? You are already close to the peak of the divine world. Tran Hung knew that with Night Sorrow's talent and foundation, he could fight across realms. Now that he had become a divine king, it was very significant. Haha, you are flattering me. The 7 sovereigns of the divine world are not simple. It is unlikely that a divine king can fight against them. Night Sorrow smiled and said modestly, now that we have established ourselves in the divine world, I will take you to the immortal divine territory. Immortal divine territory? Upon hearing this name, Tran Hung and King Yo Wu did not understand. They had just arrived in the divine world, and before they could find out anything, they had been captured by the Luo Tian city governor. Seeing the confusion on the 2 seniors' faces, Yi Shang completely understood that they must be the same as him when he first arrived in the God realm, completely clueless about the world. Then, on the way back to the immortal divine territory, he explained everything to them. Then he began to talk about his journey. After listening to Night Sorrow's explanation, Tran Hung nodded and sighed. It seems that there are battles everywhere. There is no pure land in this world. Maybe survival of the fittest is the rule of the world. Night Shang was no longer worried about the battles in the God world, but he was still worried about the eternal sovereign realm. He didn't want the Supremes over there to be unable to hold on, leading to the destruction of the God realm overnight. However, Yi Shang didn't mention the eternal supreme world to Emperor Qin and King Yo Wu. He was afraid they wouldn't be able to digest it. My lord, my lord. On the way back to the immortal domain, the Sky Cloud Bow's artifact spirit, Little Tian, suddenly spoke. Its strength had suddenly risen to the Divine Lord level. Little Tian, how did you do it? Night Sorrow used his first godly soul to communicate with Tran Hung and King Yo Wu, while his second godly soul communicated with Little Tian. My lord, when your opponent self-destructed, all his energy was absorbed by Little Tian. Therefore he advanced to the Divine Sovereign level. Little Tian replied and continued, now that Little Tian controls Tianyun Bao, he can fight with the Divine King. Good. Very good. When we face the Divine King in the future, it will be 2 against 1. Our chances of victory will be much higher. Night Sorrow was very pleased that Little Tian could improve so quickly. He secretly felt that the Luo Tian ruler had really helped him this time. He had found a way to help Little Tian improve his strength. If he could help Little Tian reach the same level as the Divine King, then the Divine King would no longer be a threat to Night Sorrow. When they returned to the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow took Tran Hung and King Yo Wu in a circle. There were large-scale battles taking place in some places, but Night Sorrow didn't stop them. When they returned to the City Lord Mansion, Night Sorrow's wives were waiting in the living room. Yi Xiaoke was the most excited when he saw that Night Sorrow had brought Tran Hung and King Yo Wu back unharmed. He felt very regretful that he hadn't been able to rescue the 2 seniors. However, Night Sorrow explained to him that the Luo Tian ruler had let him see Tran Hung and King Yo Wu before letting him go. That was to lure Night Sorrow over. The Luo Tian ruler's ultimate goal was to deal with him. Father, is the Luo Tian ruler no longer a match for you? Yi Xiaoke asked curiously when he heard Night Sorrow's explanation. Aha. You're overthinking it. I'm only a divine emperor. How could I possibly be a match for the Luo Tian ruler? Yi Shang smiled and said, it was his clone that was defeated. Defeated the Luo Tian ruler's clone? That's not easy. Lin Piaomiao exclaimed when she heard Night Sorrow's words. She had already become a divine emperor. Although her bloodline power was heaven-defying, she could only fight against the divine king, who was the weakest of them all. You guys go ahead and catch up. We'll prepare the banquet. At this time Sikong Chuyu opened her mouth and said. Then she went with Qing Ji and the others to prepare the banquet. Night Sorrow and the others chatted with Tran Hung and King Yewu. Before long, the entire domain master's manor was filled with the sound of toasting. 3 days and nights later, Night Sorrow gathered everyone again. Everyone, I'll be heading to the Cloud Fairy continent soon to support the major immortal sects. Then, I'll go to the Ninth Heaven Temple to find the recipe for the Heavenly Phoenix ever-changing elixir for all of you whose bodies are damaged. Now, the resources in the Domain Master's Manor are enough to support everyone's cultivation to the Divine Emperor level. You guys can cultivate in peace. My husband, you're leaving again. Sikong Chiyu walked up to Night Sorrow and asked, How are Jing Yun and Auntie Fei? They're fine. They're receiving the inheritance. Because they're fine, I didn't tell them to leave, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Sikong Chiyu asked, My husband, what do you think we should do with Auntie Fei? What do you mean? Night Sorrow asked curiously. I forget it. Seeing Night Sorrow's reaction, Sikong Chiyu did not say anything and left. Then Night Sorrow took Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, who were in the Haotian Pagoda, to the Cloud Fairy continent. As for Mo Yin, he left him by Jin Ye's side to be Jin Ye's assistant. Now that there were 2 divine kings in the immortal divine realm, and Long Tianqing was cultivating there, it was no longer a force that could be dealt with by ordinary forces. Night Sorrow was more assured about this. He immediately went to the Tianyun school to check on the sect situation. Xiao Tianxian had entrusted Tianyun Bao to him, so he was responsible for the safety of the Tianyun school. When he arrived at the Tianyun school, Night Sorrow found that there was no one around except for the Heaven Cloud Ladder and some weak disciples. Chapter 28-29. It turns out that all the disciples above the High God realm have joined the battle. It seems that this war is more tragic than I thought. The heavenly demons have invested more than I expected. Night Sorrow, who had lingered in Tianyun school for a while, felt a calling when he passed by the Sky Cloud staircase. However, there were no important figures in Tianyun school, so he didn't want to climb the Sky Cloud staircase. He flew towards the main battlefield of Soaring Heaven sect, hoping to meet some old friends as soon as possible. Night Sorrow flew towards Soaring Heaven sect with the 2 divine kings, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, as well as Cao Linga. He was extremely far away, but he could still clearly sense the battle in the distance. At this time, the battle in Soaring Heaven sect was still fierce. The void above Soaring Heaven sect had been completely darkened, and the soul-devouring Yin wind was still there. The surrounding environment was a bit like Ethereal Mountain. Ethereal Mountain's tentacles have already reached into the God realm. Why haven't the 7 sovereigns taken action? Dragon Sparrow King, who had learned about the current distribution of forces in the God realm from Night Sorrow, immediately asked in confusion. Because many people have their own agendas. I think that even among the sovereigns, there may be heavenly demons. Therefore only the heavenly demons. Most of the sovereigns won't take action until Soaring Heaven sect is attacked. After Night Sorrow stated his opinion, he began to analyze the specific reasons. The situation was complicated. Not every sovereign had the heart to save the world. They only cared about their own interests. For example, All Heaven Sovereign, Dark Moon Sovereign, and Illustrious Sovereign were all such people. As for Heavenly Buddha Sovereign and 7-Star Sovereign, their attitudes were not clear, and Night Sorrow had not contacted them. Therefore, in his opinion, only Sovereign Tianyi and Sovereign Qingyin cared about things from the perspective of the God realm. The 2 of them were very strong, especially Sovereign Tianyi, who was an absolute powerhouse in the God realm. Because of this, he could see things that Night Sorrow and the others could not. There was obviously a reason why he did not take action in Soaring Heaven sect. Looks like the human heart is really unpredictable. Obviously, the forces of the God realm could easily crush the heavenly demon from Soaring Heaven sect. But the Divine King, Divine Monarch, and High Divinity of Cloud Celestial Continent had to deal with it themselves. The Blazing Phoenix King couldn't understand why the sovereigns hadn't made a move yet. She couldn't help but mock them. In response, Night Sorrow said, Actually, although the sovereigns appear to be glorious, they are actually the most dangerous people in the God realm. As long as any one of them shows signs of collapsing, they will definitely be surrounded by the most terrifying attacks. Every step they take needs to be carefully considered. Lord Night Sorrow, you're still the kind-hearted one who cares for the common people. The Dragon Sparrow King didn't continue talking about the other rulers. Instead he praised Night Sorrow. Ever since they had met, he had discovered that Night Sorrow was different from the others. How should I put it? I'm a cultivator of the force of virtue. Under such circumstances I can't retreat. Moreover, killing the heavenly demon is a great benefit to me, so I'm not completely selfless. Night Sorrow explained as they continued to fly towards Soaring Heaven Sect. Hearing this, the Dragon Sparrow King said with some envy, "Doesn't that mean you can infinitely increase your strength? Why don't you kill your way into the ethereal mountain range one day and become a sovereign there?" I really haven't thought about this idea of yours before. After the Dragon Sparrow King said this, Night Sorrow thought about it seriously and felt that this matter wasn't completely impossible. However, at this time he had already seen the Tianyun School's flag. He understood that he had arrived at the Tianyun School's residence. After saying a few words to the Dragon Sparrow King and the Blazing Phoenix King, Night Sorrow flew towards the city floating in the void. Who's there? Seeing the powerful aura of Night Sorrow flying over, some of the high divinities guarding the city immediately shouted. Just say that Night Sorrow requests to see the Tianyun School's commander. Night Sorrow said confidently. Night Sorrow? You're the former senior brother Night Sorrow? Senior brother Night Sorrow who won first place in the 7-sect great competition and restored the prestige of our Tianyun School? One of the high divinities had some impression of the name Night Sorrow and immediately asked. That's me. Night Sorrow replied. At this time, the high divinity who spoke said with a regretful expression, Senior brother Night Sorrow, I'm afraid you won't be able to see our Tianyun School's commander. What's going on? Hearing this, Night Sorrow suddenly had an ominous feeling in his heart. Sect Master Yuan Tianji has died in battle. Our Tianyun School doesn't have an official commander at the moment. There are only 2 vice commanders, Elder Zhuang Qing and Senior Brother Mu Baiyu. The high divinity's eyes dimmed. Alright, I got it. Where are the 2 vice commanders now? Night Sorrow nodded with mixed feelings. Originally, Xiao Tianxin had asked him to use Tianyun Bao to keep Yuan Tianji in check. Unexpectedly, Yuan Tianji had died in battle. He was a little emotional about Yuan Tianji's death at the hands of the extraterrestrial demon. He wasn't sure how to evaluate Yuan Tianji's life. Senior brother, the 2 commanders are fighting at the front line. The person in charge of the situation in the city now is Elder Lu Qingyuan. The high divinity continued. Hearing the name Lu Qingyuan, Night Sorrow immediately said, Take me to him. After entering the city, Night Sorrow scanned the city with his divine soul and immediately sensed that Lu Qingyuan was the only Sir God in good condition in the city. The other 5 Sir Gods were all seriously injured. 2 of them had fought alongside Night Sorrow. He suddenly lamented in his heart, feeling that the war was too tragic. Elder Lu, why are you in a daze? When Night Sorrow entered Lu Qingyuan's mansion, he found him looking at a picture. His eyes were full of hesitation. Obviously he had something on his mind. Night Sorrow? Night Sorrow, it's you. It's really you? Lu Qingyuan was a little stunned when he was called. When he came back to his senses, he immediately gave Night Sorrow a hug. When he hugged Night Sorrow, his body kept trembling. Elder Lu, what's going on? Quickly tell me the situation in front of us. Yuan Tianji had died in battle and the Sir Gods of Tianyun School had all rushed to the battlefield. Night Sorrow knew that the situation in front of him was very difficult. But he needed to understand the situation in front of him before he could decide what to do. He was no longer the high divinity of the past. He could crush most of the divine kings. Moreover, there were 2 upper divine kings, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King, in the spatial artifact. They would definitely bring a great impact to the battle. Night Sorrow. There's no time. Quickly go and save Mu Baiyu. A few days ago, she went deep into the hinterland and killed a king-level extraterrestrial demon, but she was surrounded by several divine kings. She hasn't sent back any news for 7 days. Chapter 28:30. No, that's not right. Night Sorrow, when this elder saw you, it was as if I had grasped at a life-saving straw. I forgot to consider your strength. After saying this, Lu Qingyuan suddenly sighed. When this war had just begun, Night Sorrow had only been at the High God realm. He glanced at Night Sorrow and couldn't see his cultivation level, so he immediately shook his head. He didn't believe that in just a few years, Night Sorrow had the ability to enter the Divine King's encirclement and save one of their own Divine Kings. In these years of war, Mu Baiyu had already successfully advanced to the Divine King level, and this was all forced out by the extraterrestrial demons. Elder Lu, don't worry. Night Sorrow is now a high Divine Lord and can fight against the Divine King. Tell me, where is senior sister Mu Baiyu? I'll go save her. Hearing the name Mu Baiyu, Night Sorrow's heart immediately fluttered with a hint of charm. But then he revealed a look of respect. She was a woman, but she had carried the Tianyun school on her shoulders and fought against the extraterrestrial demons for so many years. Moreover, she had advanced from a divine lord to a divine king. This was no easy feat. In just a few years, you've already advanced to a high divine lord and are only a step away from the divine king? Is that Tianyun Bao still with you? When Lu Qingyuan heard that Night Sorrow's strength had advanced to a high divine lord, he was both shocked and pleasantly surprised. He knew that with Night Sorrow's talent as a high divine lord, it was no problem for him to fight against the divine king. If Tianyun Bao was still with him, then he was definitely not someone an ordinary divine king could fight against. He's still with me and he's already evolved. Currently, I can fight against several divine kings. Elder Lu, tell me where senior sister Mu Baiyu is. Night Sorrow didn't summon the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King. If that's the case, there's no time to lose. Take this map and go to the rescue. When Lu Qingyuan heard Night Sorrow's words, he immediately handed the map that he had been observing for several days to Night Sorrow and said, "This was sent back by Mu Baiyu before he completely lost contact with us." At the same time, he passed Mu Baiyu's soul lamp to Night Sorrow. "Elder Lu, wait for me to rescue senior sister Mu Baiyu, then we can chat." Night Sorrow took the painting and the soul lamp and immediately left. After all, saving people was like putting out a fire. On the way, he, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King studied the picture in their hands. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King didn't see anything, but Night Sorrow, who had activated the Sea Serpent Eye, saw that the picture in front of him was a mechanism array diagram. Could it be one of Soaring Heaven Sect's internal spirit arrays? Night Sorrow studied the spirit array for a while and soon discovered that Soaring Heaven Sect was right in front of him. At this time, he discovered that the center of the battle was in Soaring Heaven Sect. At this time, some divine king was leading the divine monarchs and high gods of the cloud celestial continent to fight against the heavenly demons. Night Sorrow saw Tan Qingfeng and Zhuang Qing, the divine king. At this time, the two of them were fighting against the divine king of the heavenly demons, but neither of them was at a disadvantage, so he decided to sneak into the rear and rescue Mu Baiyu before taking action. Senior sister Mu Baiyu, why didn't she fight head-on, but sneak into the rear of the heavenly demons and launch a sneak attack? Is there something that Elder Lu doesn't know about? Seeing the battle in front of him, Night Sorrow felt that there was no need for Mu Baiyu to sneak into the rear of the enemy. I wonder if there is a ruler. In the process of sneaking into the rear, Night Sorrow inevitably killed a few heavenly demons. However, they were all divine monarchs, so they didn't encounter the divine king. If they encountered the high gods, they didn't need to take action at all. It shouldn't be, right? Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Dragon Sparrow King immediately replied. If they encountered the ruler of the ethereal mountain during this operation, they would definitely still be here. Even if Night Sorrow had a ruler divine artifact in hand, he definitely wouldn't be a match for a ruler. I hope so. Night Sorrow said as he continued to sneak into the darkness. He felt that Mu Baiyu must have a reason for sneaking into the rear of the enemy, but he couldn't figure it out at this time. If we go any deeper, I'm afraid there will be a fierce battle. When Night Sorrow sneaked into the area where the soul-devouring Yin Wind was the thickest from Soaring Heaven Sect, he found that there was already a territory of darkness in front of him. Then let's fight. The battle outside is so fierce. If we suddenly take action, there shouldn't be many divine king-level heavenly demons around. With the strength of the three of us, we should be able to deal with them all. Fire Phoenix King, who had been silent all this time, burst out with a strong fighting spirit in the Clear Heaven Pagoda. Dragon Sparrow King also said, if we can't win, we'll run. With the ruler divine artifact, they definitely won't be able to stop us. I'm not afraid of what we will do. I'm just afraid that they will attack senior sister. Night Sorrow looked at the soul lamp in his hand and said. At this time, Mu Baiyu was obviously still alive. That's a problem. Fire Phoenix King nodded and said with a frown. At this time, Dragon Sparrow King's eyes lit up and said, I have an idea. What idea? Tell me. Night Sorrow looked at Dragon Sparrow King. Fire Phoenix King also locked her eyes on him. Dragon Sparrow King looked at the two and said, anyway, Senior Night Sorrow can use the soul lamp to track Mu Baiyu's location. Why don't the two of us make a big scene nearby and attract more Divine King and create an opportunity for him? He knew that Night Sorrow had learned the tracking technique from Cao Ling. All right. Night Sorrow thought for a while and felt that although doing so would put Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King in danger temporarily, it was still a way. It was better than rushing head-on. Therefore, Night Sorrow quietly separated from the two and went in the direction of Mu Baiyu. About 6 hours later, Night Sorrow sensed Mu Baiyu's location. At this time, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King had already made their move. In the hinterland of the extraterrestrial demons, 2 upper-level Divine Kings suddenly sneak-attacked and immediately killed the 2 lower-level Divine King. This also caused the extraterrestrial demons in the hinterland to be attracted over. When Night Sorrow arrived at Mu Baiyu's location, there were only 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons left in front of him. At this time, Mu Baiyu was locked in an array. The 4 otherworldly demon god kings were currently in human form, sitting at the 4 corners of the formation. They seemed to be casting a spell. Mu Baiyu was not completely unconscious, but she was bound and could not resist at all. Not good. They are casting a spell trying to summon something over. Seeing the situation in front of him, Night Sorrow immediately thought of the array diagram in his mind. The array diagram in his mind was the blueprint of the array in front of him. Night Sorrow directly took out Tianyun Bao and let little Tian control Tianyun Bao to shoot arrows at the center of the array. He himself rushed towards one of the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. He wanted to kill it immediately. Night Sorrow? Why are you here? At this time, Mu Baiyu was originally in despair. When she saw Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao, she immediately became excited. Chapter 28:31. What? They are actually summoning the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demons. Hearing Mu Baiyu's words, Night Sorrow's heart skipped a beat. No wonder the battle outside was so intense and the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons were still lingering behind. It turned out that they were brewing a huge storm. If the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demons were summoned, the entire Cloud Immortal continent would fall. Even if the sovereign of the heavenly realm intervened, that would be another story. Boom. Clang. After Mu Baiyu spoke, Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao's attacks were all blocked. There was an invisible layer of defense around the 4 Divine King and the summoning array. This layer of defense could easily block Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao's attacks. Seeing Night Sorrow's attacks, Mu Baiyu transmitted her voice. Use the array diagram to break the array. Otherwise we won't stand a chance. I will be sacrificed soon. I will save you. Night Sorrow looked at Mu Baiyu, who was trapped in the array. Her hair was disheveled and she was in a sorry state. Moreover, her blood was being sucked away by the array. Her face was getting paler and paler and her lips were cracked. I believe in you. Mu Baiyu replied as she supported her godly domain. Originally she had completely given up on resisting. I will do it. Night Sorrow was quite talented when it came to arrays. With the array diagram in hand, it wasn't difficult to figure out how to break the array. However, the current problem was that time was too tight. Just as Night Sorrow was researching, a blurry figure descended. As it absorbed Mu Baiyu's blood, the blurry figure became clearer and clearer. Mu Baiyu was also getting weaker and weaker. At this moment, the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons at the 4 corners of the array each threw a large amount of darkness divine crystals into the array. After the ethereal mountain sect's dark divine crystals were thrown in, the dark energy contained in the array formation increased exponentially. The blurry figure that had been summoned opened his eyes and looked at Mu Baiyu. With a hoarse voice he said greedily, "This king loves beautiful blood food the most. You have done well. Shatter the entire god realm, Lord Ruler." The originally calm eyes of the 4 extraterritorial demons were now filled with intense killing intent. The surrounding soul-slaughtering wind became even more intense in an instant. The surrounding environment became worse and worse. It was almost like the ethereal mountain range. It seems like the ruler of the extraterrestrial demons can't adapt to the environment of the divine realm right away. We need to set up this place to suit him. Outside the array, Night Sorrow, who had already begun to break the array, muttered in his heart and continued to attack. Time was too tight for him to think about anything else. He didn't even have the time to look at Mu Baiyu, who was in the array formation. At the same time, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were fighting against 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. These extraterrestrial demons weren't very strong, but they had the advantage in numbers. Fire Phoenix King was slightly stronger. She fought against 3 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons alone. Dragon Sparrow King was slightly weaker, but he was still able to fight against 2 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. The battle was very intense and they were evenly matched. However, before long, a large number of Divine Monarch-level extraterrestrial demons joined the battle. These Divine Monarchs were existences that Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King could kill with one strike. However, they had the advantage in numbers. Moreover, they used the array formation to sacrifice their own strength to the 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. Soon, Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King felt that they couldn't hold on any longer. Why do I feel more and more violent fighting against these dark creatures? Dragon Sparrow King transmitted his voice to Fire Phoenix King. He felt that the violence in his heart was becoming more and more terrifying. It was as if he wanted to destroy the world. I will teach you the Calm Heart incantation. Fire Phoenix King also felt that her emotions were becoming more and more violent at the beginning. However, after using the Calm Heart incantation, she immediately calmed down. It is indeed useful. If not for your Calm Heart incantation, I am afraid that we would have been completely demonized after fighting for a while. Dragon Sparrow King said happily. At the same time, Dragon Sparrow King began to use the Divine Talisman. With the help of the Divine Talisman, his and Fire Phoenix King's speed increased by several times. After the increase in speed, the 2 of them who were gradually unable to resist, were now able to retreat while fighting. Lord Night Sorrow, how is the situation on your side? We are no match for them, but we can still delay for some time. As time passed, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King gradually felt that they couldn't hold on any longer. This was because the extraterrestrial demons became stronger the more they fought. That kind of swelling rhythm of strength was not something they could resist. I don't know. Night Sorrow replied. At this moment he was doing his best to break the array formation. His speed of breaking the array formation could not be said to be slow. Soon he broke a corner of the array formation. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to continue breaking the array formation, the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons in the array formation all stood up. They attacked Night Sorrow. As for the illusory figure in the array formation, although he could not move, his body was becoming more and more corporeal. Gradually, his aura evolved from that of a Divine Monarch to that of a Divine King, and his aura was still increasing. It would probably not take long for him to advance to the sovereign level. Night Sorrow thought to himself. If he allowed him to advance to the sovereign level, no matter if it was him, Mu Baiyu, Fire Phoenix King or Dragon Sparrow King, they would all be thrown here. The many Divine King and Divine Monarchs in the Cloud Fairy continent would all be killed. At this moment, Mu Baiyu, who was in the array formation, had completely lost the ability to transmit her voice. She looked to be in extreme pain. Senior Sister Mu Baiyu, how are you? Night Sorrow, who had transmitted his voice to her, waited for a while but did not receive anything. He immediately understood the urgency of the situation. Holding the Samsara Heavenly Halberd, he activated the 33 Heavens Battle Mystic Technique and faced the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. Among these 4 extraterrestrial demons, 2 were middle-level Divine King, and 2 were high-level Divine King. Night Sorrow directly used the Samsara Heavenly Halberd to attack one of the middle-level Divine King, directly piercing through his body. However, this middle-level Divine King-level extraterrestrial demon quickly reformed in the void. Together with the other 3 extraterrestrial demons, it once again charged toward Night Sorrow. The 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons attacked at the same time, and their might was very strong. In an instant they suppressed Night Sorrow to the point that he did not even have a chance to attack. However, at this moment Little Tian, who was controlling Tianyun Bao, shot 4 heavenly cloud arrows at the 4 extraterrestrial demons under Night Sorrow's instructions. The 4 heavenly cloud arrows were shot out, and they instantly shone brightly. A sovereign divine weapon with an artifact spirit? The few Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons were astonished when they discovered that Tianyun Bao could actually attack on his own. Purify you filth. Little Tian, who had already advanced to the Divine Monarch realm, was no longer as ignorant as when he was just born. Facing the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons, he roared. Chapter 28-32. The 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons, who hadn't been frightened by the 4 heavenly cloud arrows, were scared out of their wits when they saw the 4 arrows of virtue. Night Sorrow's power of virtue was more effective against the extraterrestrial demons than the ruler divine weapon. Break. However, just as the 4 divine king-level extraterrestrial demons were suppressed by the heavenly cloud arrows and the arrows of virtue and were fleeing in all directions, the figure in the array suddenly roared a single word. That huge momentum directly shattered all 8 of Tianyun Bao's arrows. After the roar, the figure in the array instantly became much more blurry. All of you quickly kill this god monarch ant in front of you. After shattering all 8 of the heavenly cloud Bao's arrows, it immediately let out a roar. Then it shot an extremely dark energy at Tianyun Bao. Although little Tian, who was controlling Tianyun Bao, tried its best to dodge, it was still covered by the dark energy. Lord Night Sorrow, I'm afraid little Tian won't be able to use Tianyun Bao to help you for the time being. Little Tian immediately transmitted a message to Night Sorrow when Tianyun Bao was covered by the dark energy. Although Tianyun Bao was a ruler divine weapon, it was still suppressed by the ruler divine weapon. No worries, I'll help you break the seal. When Tianyun Bao was corroded by the ruler divine weapon's aura, Night Sorrow immediately used his power of virtue to surround Tianyun Bao. The effect is very good, but it won't be completely purified in a short time. Little Tian, who was controlling Tianyun Bao, realized that the power of virtue that Night Sorrow used could even purify the ruler divine weapon's dark energy. However, the speed was limited, and it was impossible to completely purify it in an instant. No worries, I'll do my best. Night Sorrow replied. Then, with the heavenly Samsara halberd in hand, he attacked the few divine king-level extraterrestrial demons. Recently he had been relying too much on Tianyun Bao. Night Sorrow felt that his condition was not quite right. At this moment Tianyun Bao was temporarily sealed, and his body immediately erupted with a strong fighting spirit. As his fighting spirit soared into the sky, his taboo spear pierced towards one of the divine kings. This time, Night Sorrow didn't even use the virtuous dragon locking array. He wanted to fight a real battle. Furthermore, he had to end the battle quickly. After all, Mu Baiyu, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were all waiting for him to save them. A divine lord dares to fight us to the death. You overestimate yourself. Seeing Night Sorrow's taboo spear stabbing towards him, the extraterrestrial demon, who had transformed into a human form but looked extremely evil, there was a human-like disdain on his face. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed the heavenly Samsara halberd. It was as if it wanted to swallow the heavenly Samsara halberd. You want to swallow the taboo spear? You really don't know what's good for you. Night Sorrow roared in disdain when he saw that the extraterrestrial demon, who was at the level of a divine king, was going to fight him head-on. However, the extraterrestrial demon who chose to fight him head-on, said arrogantly, I, the divine king, not only want to swallow your divine weapon, but I also want to swallow you directly. As he roared, his mouth became bigger and bigger, as if it had turned into a huge black hole. Swallow? I'll let you swallow me. Facing the extraterrestrial demon's black hole-like mouth, Night Sorrow charged in. Buzz. After a loud noise, Night Sorrow, who was wielding the heavenly Samsara halberd, directly passed through the extraterrestrial demon's body. Although the opponent was a divine king, the heavenly Samsara halberd was a half-step dominator divine weapon, and Night Sorrow was already a high-level divine lord. In terms of strength, he was not at a disadvantage at all against a mid-level divine king. Hey Mo, are you okay? Seeing Night Sorrow, who was wielding the heavenly Samsara halberd, pass through Heimo's body, the other mid-level divine king immediately asked. The other 2 high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demons charged toward Night Sorrow and attacked him. At this point, the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King were probably unable to hold on any longer and asked for help from Night Sorrow again. Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to the Dragon Sparrow King. Lure them to me. After giving them directions, he continued to fight the 2 high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demons. Night Sorrow, who was madly fighting against them, did not fall into a disadvantage even without Tianyun Bao's help. Soon he killed another high-level divine king-level extraterrestrial demon. What a dense amount of power of virtue. After killing 2 extraterrestrial demons in a row, Night Sorrow immediately absorbed a large amount of power of virtue. Although it was not enough to support his power of virtue to the divine king level, the increase in his strength was a very good supplement for him. Next up are the 2 of you. After digesting the power of virtue, Night Sorrow did not hesitate at all and attacked the other 2 extraterrestrial demons. At this point, the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King were not far away. Moreover, Mu Baiyu's condition was very bad, so he had to end the battle quickly. Lord Night Sorrow, I can continue attacking. At this moment, the power of virtue completely eliminated the power of darkness on Tianyun Bao. Little Tian immediately transmitted his voice to Night Sorrow. Very good. Cooperate with me and kill the high-level Divine King-level extraterrestrial demon first. Night Sorrow used the profound heaven-roaming dragon steps and the taboo reincarnation spear at the same time. While exerting great pressure on the other party, he ordered Little Tian to shoot the arrow of virtue. This time, without the help of the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demon, the high-level Divine King-level extraterrestrial demon was directly killed by Tianyun Bao's arrow of virtue. As for the last mid-level Divine King-level extraterrestrial demon, it was even more powerless. It was easily dealt with by Night Sorrow. After dealing with the 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons, Night Sorrow used the array diagram to rescue Mu Baiyu. Senior sister, how are you? Enter the spatial artifact to recuperate first. Mu Baiyu's face was very pale, without a trace of blood. She looked as if she had been fished out of the water. I'm fine. Think of a way to completely destroy the array in front of us. Otherwise this sovereign will completely descend. Mu Baiyu, who was kept in the clear sky pagoda, was very weak. Cao Ling took care of her. However, before she completely fainted, she still transmitted a message to Night Sorrow. Completely destroy it? With the array diagram it's not difficult. I wonder how senior sister Mu Baiyu obtained this array diagram. With the array diagram in hand, Night Sorrow quickly destroyed the array, leaving only a portion of the descending sovereign-level extraterrestrial demon. At this moment, the sovereign-level extraterrestrial demon had just launched 2 attacks and was already unable to resist. Seeing that Night Sorrow had destroyed the summoning array, he immediately threatened, "Aunt, this sovereign is warning you. Don't make any moves. Otherwise, when my ethereal mountain army arrives, this sovereign will be the first to kill you. Let's talk about those things when you arrive." Night Sorrow completely ignored the threat and used the heavenly Samsara halberd and the power of virtue to completely eliminate it. Chapter 28:33. Their numbers were even more than the 4 god kings he had killed earlier added together. After absorbing the power of virtue, Night Sorrow felt that his own power of virtue was close to the level of a half-step Divine King. At this moment, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King arrived. Seeing the few Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons chasing after them, Night Sorrow's battle intent exploded. He used his power of virtue to purify the dark aura on Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. Dominator Divine Weapon? Power of virtue? The Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons chasing after Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King realized that something was wrong when they saw Night Sorrow and Tianyun Bao. Originally, their strength was not much stronger than Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King. They had to rely on the help of many Divine Lords to completely suppress them. Now, with the addition of Night Sorrow and the Dominator Divine Weapon, the situation was reversed instantly. We are no match for them. Retreat. Escape from here. Meet up with the army outside. Hei Chan, the leader of the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons, immediately ordered when he saw that the situation was not right. Escape? Do you think you can escape? Night Sorrow, who was very thirsty for power of virtue, would not give them a chance to escape. With the heavenly Samsara halberd in his hand and the Tianyun Bao floating above his head, he started to chase after the extraterrestrial demons. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King followed closely behind. Let's not catch up too quickly and let them escape. Wait until they are outside before attacking. Night Sorrow, who was using his movement technique, could actually catch up with the few Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons in front of him very quickly. However, he did not do so. Okay. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King did not understand his intentions, but they still deliberately slowed down. Night Sorrow did not explain too much about this. His goal was naturally to cause a shock to the army of extraterrestrial demons outside. He wanted them to be defeated in panic. When the Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons charged out of the darkness, the first to be attacked was not the army of the Ethereal Mountain sect, but the cultivators of the Cloud Celestial Continent. Seeing 5 Divine King-level heavenly demons rush out from beneath Soaring Heaven sect, Tan Qingfeng and the others who were leading the Cloud Celestial Continent army to fight against these heavenly demons suddenly paled. He immediately ordered, "Retreat. The enemy has suddenly gained 5 Divine King. We are definitely no match for them." Tianyun school students, listen up. Retreat with the army. When the divine king Zhuangqing saw that the situation wasn't right, he also gave the order. The divine kings of the other sects also chimed in. Something's not right. They seem to be running away. However, Tan Qingfeng and the others soon realized that something was amiss. When those extraterrestrial demons rushed out, they obviously had no intention of fighting. After Tan Qingfeng discovered this matter, he thought for a moment and said, "It's very likely that there's some kind of conspiracy behind it. Let's retreat." Good. Let's return to our stations and discuss this matter further. The divine king Zhuangqing of Tianyun School also spoke. There's no need to retreat. Today we will completely resolve this disaster. At this moment, a voice rang out from the void. Although this voice wasn't very loud, it was enough for everyone present to hear. Night Sorrow? Everyone who heard the voice soon realized that the owner of the voice was Night Sorrow. The moment he saw Night Sorrow, Tan Qingfeng, who had a very good impression of him, suddenly brightened and said, "Good timing." Although he couldn't see through Night Sorrow's strength, the aura on his body still shocked Tan Qingfeng. The divine king Zhuangqing's face immediately showed surprise, especially when he saw the two upper divine kings behind Night Sorrow. He said with joy, "We've held on for so long. Finally we can see the light." They deliberately entered a stalemate with you. In fact, they were planning to summon the sovereign-level heavenly demons. About 10 of the heavenly demons occupying Soaring Heaven sect didn't participate in the battle outside. This was obviously very strange. After thinking for a moment, Night Sorrow judged their intentions. They definitely wanted to secretly summon a large number of sovereigns and wait for the right time to launch a fierce attack on the God Realm. It was just a coincidence that Mu Baiyu stumbled upon their plot. And Night Sorrow completely killed this plot. If it weren't for Night Sorrow, Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King being strong enough to fight 3 against 9 without falling into a disadvantage, their initial plot would have succeeded. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Tan Qingfeng's face immediately changed and he said in shock, "There's such a thing. If they summoned a few sovereigns and attacked when the sovereigns of the God Realm were careless, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable." It's fine. Now their plot has been completely destroyed. We just need to close the door and beat the dogs. Night Sorrow explained and shouted, "Kill all the heavenly demons, don't leave a single one alive. Kill all the heavenly demons, don't leave a single one alive. Kill all the heavenly demons, don't leave a single one alive." With Night Sorrow's roar, the morale of the Cloud Fairy Continent's army rose. Most of the cultivators followed Night Sorrow's lead and roared. The heavenly demons, whose morale had already been shaken, were immediately suppressed. At this time, seeing that the situation was not right, Hei-chan immediately said coldly, "Even if we die, we will die on the path of devouring the cultivators of the God Realm. Fight with me. I'll be destroyed with you." Realizing that Hei-chan was the leader of the Cloud Fairy Continent's plot, Night Sorrow immediately attacked with the heavenly Samsara halberd. "Night Sorrow, your strength has increased to such a level." Tan Qingfeng was shocked when he saw Night Sorrow attacking Hei-chan, who was at the level of the Divine King. Although Tan Qingfeng believed that Night Sorrow was not an ordinary person and that he would become an all-powerful person sooner or later, he never expected that Night Sorrow could grow from a high god to such a level in such a short period of time. Amazing, really amazing. Zhuangqing, the Divine King, revealed a gratified smile on his face. Then he thought to himself, maybe the current Night Sorrow can climb the heavenly cloud stairway. The other Divine Kings were also shocked by Night Sorrow's bravery. Especially some of the female cultivators among the Heaven Immortals, there were other elements in their eyes when they looked at him. Go. Night Sorrow felt the attention of the seniors. However, the extraterrestrial demons had not been completely dealt with yet. He did not want to see unnecessary casualties, so he let Tianyun Bao attack while he fought bravely with the heavenly Samsara halberd. Moreover, he roared domineeringly. After being roared by Night Sorrow, some of the Cloud Fairy Continent's cultivators who were distracted immediately came back to their senses. He was fully focused on the battle. The extraterrestrial demons' momentum was damaged, and none of them could resist Night Sorrow, so they were quickly destroyed. The soul-devouring Yin wind that shrouded Soaring Heaven sect completely disappeared with the extraterrestrial demons. This long and drawn-out battle is over just like that? When the smoke of the battle dissipated, some of the cultivators present were a little stunned, feeling that the battle had ended too suddenly. Chapter 28-34. Many people had participated in this battle with the determination to die. Knight Sorrow had wiped out all the forces of the extraterrestrial demons after he had appeared. In the eyes of many cultivators of the Cloud Celestial Continent, he was like a savior. Before he had appeared, most of the cultivators had held the mentality of killing as many as they could. Ah, Knight Sorrow. I didn't misjudge you. You are indeed not a fish in a pond. While many cultivators were still lamenting, the Tianqing Gate's Gate Master, Tan Qingfeng, came to his side and greeted him. Gate Master Tan, you flatter me. It was my friend and I who appeared and broke the balance. This is Fire Phoenix King and this is Dragon Sparrow King. Knight Sorrow said politely and introduced Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King to Tan Qingfeng. Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King had been forced to come out of the Clear Sky Pagoda and join the battle. However, he did not want Tan Qingfeng and the others to treat them as his own soldiers. Hello, Divine King and Fire Phoenix King. I am the Tianqing Gate's Gate Master, Tan Qingfeng. May I know where you two are from? Dragon Sparrow King and Fire Phoenix King were both Upper Divine King, so Tan Qingfeng greeted them very politely. We are from a secret small world. Fire Phoenix King did not know what to say. She did not want to talk about the Supreme Phoenix ancestor. Dragon Sparrow King answered. I see. It seems that Knight Sorrow has been running around a lot these years. Tan Qingfeng said politely to the two of them, then looked at Knight Sorrow and said, May I know what is your cultivation level now? Upper Divine Lord. Knight Sorrow thought for a moment and replied. In fact, his power of virtue had already advanced to the level of a half-step Divine King. His own strength would also reach the half-step Divine King realm through cultivation. As Tan Qingfeng heard this, he was extremely shocked. He was well aware that Knight Sorrow was a genius, but he never imagined that he would be able to contend against an otherworldly demon on the level of an Upper Divine King as an Upper Divine Lord. After a long period of silence, he still didn't say anything. At this moment, the Divine King Zhuangqing arrived with the Tianyun school students. He laughed and looked at Knight Sorrow. Good. If you can defeat a Divine King when you're just a high Divine Sovereign, won't you be able to fight against a ruler when you reach the Divine King realm? Elder Zhuang, you flatter me. Knight Sorrow humbly replied to Zhuangqing's words. Ah, don't overpraise me. The Divine King Zhuangqing smiled and continued, After fighting for so many years, I'm really not used to the sudden stop today. Let's go and have a drink. Okay. Knight Sorrow nodded. After exchanging pleasantries with the Divine Kings of the other sects, he went to have a celebratory drink with the crowd. At the banquet, countless people proposed toasts. Knight Sorrow didn't refuse anyone. Among them were some old friends. Some had participated in the 7 Sects tournament with Knight Sorrow. However, compared to Yishang's cultivation, the gap between them and him was huge. Some were even stuck at the Divine Feather realm. Those who had a grudge against Knight Sorrow all came over to propose toasts when they saw how powerful he was now. They were afraid that he would pursue the matter of the past. In response, Yishang only smiled and brushed it off. In his opinion, the cultivators who had fought until now in the Cloud Celestial Continent were all heroes. After all, there were many other places in the Divine Realm where they could live. However, they had resolutely chosen to fight and didn't take a step back. This was a very rare quality. Everyone, now that the crisis in the Cloud Celestial Continent has been resolved, everyone can start to rebuild the 7 sects. During this process, Knight Sorrow will help everyone to protect the Cloud Celestial Continent and prevent others from invading. Knight Sorrow, who was very respectful to the cultivators of the Cloud Celestial Continent, promised after 3 rounds of toasts. With little friend Yishang's words, Azure Peak was at ease. Tianqing Gate will be rebuilt as soon as possible. Although we lost many disciples this time, those who survived are all elites who have gone through the trials. The future is bright. In this war, the other Divine Kings of Tianqing Gate had all died in battle. Only Tan Qingfeng survived. However, with him around, Tianqing Gate didn't decline. Tianyun School will also start to rebuild. Although my Tianyun School doesn't have many disciples left, just like Tianqing Gate, the remaining ones are all elites who have gone through the battles. They will rise again very soon. Divine King Zhuangqing nodded confidently and continued, Knight Sorrow, how is your senior Mu Baiyu's condition now? Senior Mu Baiyu used too much blood and qi. However, she will completely recover after a few years of rest. Knight Sorrow explained. Mu Baiyu was recovering well in his Clear Sky Pagoda. What I mean is, let Mu Baiyu be the new sect leader of the Tianyun School. What do you think? Now that there are only 2 divine kings left in the Tianyun school, she is the most suitable person to be the sect leader. Divine King Zhuangqing looked at Night Sorrow and asked for his opinion. After all, Night Sorrow used to be a part of the Tianyun school. Moreover, he controlled Tianyun Bao and had the intention of monitoring the Tianyun school. I think it is suitable, but I still need to ask for Senior Mu Baiyu's opinion. How about this? I will ask her to come out and we can discuss it. Night Sorrow nodded and called Mu Baiyu out from the clear sky pagoda. At this moment, Mu Baiyu was a little weak and pale. However, there was a trace of joy on her face. This time, when she was bound in the array, she was already in despair. Night Sorrow suddenly appeared and saved her. He even solved the problem of the entire Yinxian continent. It made her feel like she was dreaming. Baiyu, this time I called you out to discuss and appoint you as the sect leader. Then I will announce it on the spot. What do you think? Divine King Zhuangqing asked as soon as Mu Baiyu came out. I am the sect leader? Hearing Divine King Zhuangqing's words, Mu Baiyu was a little startled at first. Then she said, Baiyu's experience is still shallow. I am not as suitable as Grand Elder Zhuang. It's fine. You are the pride of our Tianyun school's new generation of disciples. Moreover, your talent is much stronger than this Grand Elder's. You even have the potential to break through to the Dominator realm. In the future, under your leadership, the Tianyun school will definitely reach a higher level. Divine King Zhuangqing smiled and looked at Mu Baiyu with admiration. Since Grand Elder Zhuangqing is so fond of me, Baiyu will accept this heavy responsibility. Mu Baiyu thought about it for a moment and agreed. Then, the Divine King of the various major sects all came to congratulate her. After everyone finished congratulating her, Night Sorrow said, the Tianyun Bao in my hand was left behind by the Tianyun school's old sect leader, Xiao Tianxian. I will return it to the Tianyun school's new sect leader, Mu Baiyu. After all, the Tianyun Bao belonged to the Tianyun school. Night Sorrow felt that he might as well return it to the Tianyun school since he was about to leave the divine world and head to the eternal supreme world. As for the supreme grade materials, it was compensation for using the Tianyun Bao during this period of time. What? You are going to give away the Dominator artifact? Chapter 28:35. Giving away a sovereign artifact wasn't something an ordinary person could do. Tan Qingfeng wasn't the only one who was shocked. The people from the other sects also looked at Night Sorrow in shock. They couldn't understand his choice. Not even the sovereigns would be willing to give away their sovereign's artifacts. Junior brother Night Sorrow, a man's wealth is his own ruin. I can't protect Tianyun Bao right now. It's better for him to stay in your hands. Mu Baiyu, on the other hand, had a worried expression on his face. Although she was grateful for Night Sorrow's choice, she felt that she didn't have the strength to accept it. If Tianyun school obtained Tianyun Bao and a sovereign set his sights on it, the consequences would be dire. Night Sorrow was under the protection of Sovereign Tianai and Sovereign Qingyin. Some sovereigns who wanted to make a move didn't dare to make a move. If it was Mu Baiyu, things would be different. Don't worry, I'll help you resolve your worries and give Tianyun Bao to you. Night Sorrow said. Giving the sovereign artifact to Mu Baiyu would be a disaster. However, everything would be different once little Tian grew up. Good. Since little friend Yi Shang has such intentions, this sect master agrees. The Divine King Zhuangqing smiled and said, also, it's said that the sky cloud staircase is a sovereign artifact. However, no one has been able to climb it. Since you're willing to return Tianyun Bao, Tianyun school will give you another chance to climb the sky cloud staircase. His tone was unquestionable. Night Sorrow and Mu Baiyu didn't refute him. The people from the other sects were very interested. They all headed to Tianyun school to watch Night Sorrow climb the sky cloud staircase. This was Night Sorrow's third time ascending the sky cloud staircase. The results of the previous 2 times were both record-setting. Standing in front of the sky cloud staircase, Night Sorrow pondered for a moment before looking at Zhuangqing, the Divine King, and Mu Baiyu. I'll give it a try. Good luck. A smile appeared on Mu Baiyu's face. Thinking of the ridiculous things she had done in the past, she felt a little embarrassed. The Divine King Zhuangqing laughed and said, Night Sorrow. Allowing you to ascend the sky cloud stairs is sect master Xiao Tianxuan's idea. You don't have to hold back. Yes, got it. Night Sorrow said as he flew to the sky cloud ladder and started climbing. He was now a high divine lord, and his virtue energy had reached the level of a half-step divine king. Climbing the sky cloud ladder once more was much easier. Not long after, he surpassed his previous result of more than 80,000 steps and continued climbing. When he reached 100,000 steps, Night Sorrow felt a little pressure. When he reached 106,000 step, he felt that it was difficult to move forward. Immediately, he activated the Trayastrimsa Battle Mystic technique. After activating it, he started climbing as if he was walking on flat ground. Amazing. This is something that has never happened before. Even Sect Master Xiao Tianxian didn't have such an easy time. If there are no accidents, he will definitely succeed and activate the Sky Cloud Staircase. Seeing Night Sorrow's performance, the Divine King Zhuang Qing immediately praised. Night Sorrow's talent was visible to the naked eye. After the Divine King Zhuang Qing finished speaking, the people from the other sects also sighed with emotion. Every one of them knew that Night Sorrow was a person with the potential to dominate. As long as he continued to grow, he would definitely become another giant in the divine realm. They were all very respectful to him and no longer treated him as a junior. Under everyone's gaze, Night Sorrow had reached 107,537th step. He was very close to the 108,000th step. At this time, Night Sorrow felt that the pressure around him was not only from his strength, but also from his divine soul. Divine soul fusion. At this moment, Night Sorrow immediately fused his first and second divine souls together. After the fusion, his divine soul strength was further strengthened, and climbing became easier again. Just like that, Night Sorrow continued until the last 3 steps. Only then did he feel the pressure again. After activating the power of merit, Night Sorrow continued climbing 2 more steps. In front of him, there was only the last step left. This step was the one that stopped Xiao Tianxian. Night Sorrow knew that it was not simple. After trying, he realized that even if he was at the peak of everything, he still could not climb up. This step gave him a feeling that he could not surpass it. What's going on? How can I go up? Success was right in front of him, and it gave him a feeling of a carp leaping over the dragon's gate, but it also seemed to be impeccable. That feeling was very strange. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow felt that the final test was definitely not about strength. It was very likely that it was about the state of mind. After trying a few times, he could not take the last step. He simply took out the resources and cultivated on the spot to consolidate his realm. What's going on? Why is he still cultivating on the top? Seeing Night Sorrow sitting there and cultivating peacefully for a month, the people watching below were puzzled and began to talk. Zhuang Qing, the Divine King, and Mu Baiyu looked at each other but did not speak. Why is the last step repelling me so much? I can't take it no matter what. In the process of cultivation, Night Sorrow kept thinking about this question. At this moment, Lil Tian said, "Lord Night Sorrow, the problem might be with me. The Sky Cloud ladder might be repelling me, not you." There's such a thing? Night Sorrow transmitted his voice to Lil Tian. Of course there is. Didn't they say that whoever climbs the Sky Cloud ladder will be able to obtain it? It might have sensed my existence in your body, so it's repelling me. Lil Tian continued to explain. Ruler artifacts were different from other artifacts. Not only did they have their own consciousness, but they also had their own pride. Hearing Lil Tian's words, Night Sorrow felt that it made sense. He stopped cultivating and came down from the Sky Cloud ladder. He handed Tianyun Bao over to Mu Baiyu. Then he started climbing again. This time he successfully reached the top of the Sky Cloud staircase. As soon as he reached the top of the Sky Cloud ladder, Night Sorrow saw an old man with a white beard sitting next to a chessboard. "Little friend, you're here." The old man did not look at Night Sorrow behind him, but he opened his mouth to greet him. "Yes, I'm here." The scene in front of him was not what he expected, but Night Sorrow still replied indifferently. "Come and sit." The old man pointed at the stone bench opposite the chessboard and said, "Eh." Night Sorrow, who was here to take things as they came, replied and sat directly opposite the old man. "Let's play a game of chess." After Night Sorrow sat down, the old man immediately put away the chess pieces and gestured to Night Sorrow to make the first move. Then Night Sorrow will embarrass himself. Chapter 28:36. The movement of placing a piece was like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. It had a bold and unrestrained feeling of being swift and decisive. "Good." The white-bearded old man called out, "Good." Then he began to place his piece. Although Yi Shang had tried his best in this game of chess, it still ended in a complete defeat. "Do you admit defeat?" After the old man won, he unexpectedly provoked Yi Shang. "Admit defeat? What do I have to admit defeat? Again. Night Sorrow, who had been wondering what was going on, immediately had the urge to continue the game. However, the next round, and the next round continued until the 7th round, and he was defeated in every round. What profound chess skills, but I seem to have figured out your style. In the 8th game, Yi Shan's Go style suddenly stopped showing off his sharpness and became much more reserved. Although the elder tried his best, he only won by a hair's breadth. After that, the elder won all the games, but the gap between the two was getting smaller and smaller. After more than 300 games, Night Sorrow had a slight advantage. Finally, in the 365th game, he defeated the elder. To be able to defeat this old man after only 35 rounds, your talent is indeed extraordinary. The Sky Cloud Staircase will be under your control from now on. I'm very relieved. The old man said with a smile after Yi Shang's victory. You are not the artifact spirit of the Sky Cloud Staircase? Hearing the elder's words, Night Sorrow was stunned. He had thought that the elder was the artifact spirit of the Sky Cloud Staircase. I am not the artifact spirit, and the Sky Cloud Staircase has no artifact spirit. The artifact spirit has died long ago. The Sky Cloud Staircase will be yours in the future. The old man sighed and continued, I'm leaving. As soon as he finished speaking, he rose into the air and disappeared into the horizon. What kind of strength is that? From beginning to end, the elder had not released any aura, but now he had reached the heavens in one step. This surprised Night Sorrow. He felt that even a ruler might not have such strength. My soul seems to have grown stronger again. After the old man left, Night Sorrow immediately discovered that after playing 365 games, his soul had already reached the level of a half-step divine king. The increase was huge. At the same time, he felt a connection between him and the Heaven Cloud Staircase. With a thought, Night Sorrow put away the towering Heaven Cloud ladder and shrunk it to the size of the Samsara halberd. Congratulations, little friend Night Sorrow. I've finally obtained another sovereign artifact. After Night Sorrow collected the Sky Cloud ladder, the Divine King Zhuangqing immediately congratulated him. Thank you, Supreme Elder Zhuangqing. Night Sorrow nodded and smiled at him. Night Sorrow didn't know what the Sky Cloud Staircase was, but he knew that it was a ruler artifact. After exchanging a few pleasantries with Mu Baiyu and the others, Night Sorrow said, There are many things that need to be done in the Cloud Immortal continent, and it can't afford another large-scale war. Before I leave, I'll set up some arrays for the 7 sects. That's great, huh? Tan Qingfeng was the first to agree. Then Night Sorrow followed him to set up a defensive array at the Tianqing Gate. The defensive array that Night Sorrow set up was at the level of the Divine King, but it could alert him if it was attacked. After setting up the defensive array for the 7 sects, he left the Cloud Immortal continent with the Sky Cloud ladder. When Night Sorrow left, Mu Baiyu's expression was a little strange, but he didn't say anything in the end. He looked in the direction of the Tianyun school, and his expression gradually returned to normal. Lord Night Sorrow, Sect Master Mu Baiyu seems to be interested in you. As soon as they left the Cloud Immortal continent, Dragon Sparrow King sent a voice transmission to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow was speechless. Don't talk nonsense. Haha. Dragon Sparrow laughed and didn't say anything else. Then he asked, Lord Night Sorrow, what kind of thing is the Sky Cloud Ladder? None of the Dominator divine artifacts are simple. Let's study it now. After returning to the Immortal Dominion, Night Sorrow found a random mountain and set up a defensive array. Then he started to study the Sky Cloud Ladder. The Sky Cloud Ladder doesn't seem like a divine artifact for battle. After studying it for a while, Night Sorrow discovered that there was a special space in the Sky Cloud Ladder. Cultivating there would be twice the result with half the effort. If he used it in battle, he could only use it to crush his opponent. Or he could shrink it to the size of the Samsara halberd and use it as a melee weapon. But that would be a complete waste. A divine artifact for cultivation is even rarer. After hearing Night Sorrow's words, even Fire Phoenix King was interested. She and Dragon Sparrow King were already Upper Divine King, and it would be very difficult for them to improve further. If they could cultivate in the Dominator divine artifact, they would be able to understand the Dominator's law and improve further. After I set up the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array, I will place the Sky Cloud Ladder in the Immortal Dominion. For now, it can only be placed in my hands. Night Sorrow nodded and continued, Let's go back to the Immortal Dominion and cultivate in peace for a while. I need to strengthen my cultivation as a half-step divine king. His merit and godly soul had already reached the level of a half-step divine king. It was time to break through to the next level. After returning to the Immortal Dominion, Knight Sorrow spent 3 months with his family before entering the Sky Cloud Ladder to cultivate. The Sky Cloud Ladder was a Dominator divine artifact, and it contained some Dominator's law. During the cultivation process, not only did Knight Sorrow learn something, but Fire Phoenix King and Dragon Sparrow King also benefited greatly. To those in the Immortal Dominion, the Dominator divine artifact was still too far away. There was no need to be so ambitious. Knight Sorrow did not let them in for the time being. "Hubby, Dominator Tianai sent someone to see you." Lin Piaomiao suddenly sent a message to Knight Sorrow while he was cultivating in the Sky Cloud Ladder for 100 years. "Alright. I'll head out now." Knight Sorrow had already reached the level of a half-step Divine King, but the benefits of cultivating in the Sky Cloud Ladder were too great. He could comprehend Dominator's law, so he didn't leave. When Nightfall left the Heavenly Cloud Staircase and arrived at the guest hall, he saw that it was God King Northstar, one of Hegemon Tianya's subordinates. "Knight Sorrow. This king is here because of His Majesty's will." After exchanging pleasantries with Knight Sorrow, Divine King Northstar said, "He wants you to participate in the Divine Lord Challenge and enter the Sky Split Tower." "Alright. I agree. When will the challenge be held? Can I allow some of my family members to participate?" Dominator Tianai had mentioned this before. Now that Divine King Northstar had mentioned it, Knight Sorrow immediately agreed. Ever since the Immortal Dominion had developed, Night Moon Dynasty's people had almost never interacted with the outside world. Knight Sorrow felt that they could participate in Dominator Tianya's challenge. Chapter 2837. Good. Knight Sorrow understood. Those who will go with us will definitely be the best in the family. Knight Sorrow and the Divine King exchanged pleasantries before sending a message to Aoi and the others, asking them to prepare a family banquet. He was anxious to find out who would go to Tianye's territory to participate in the Divine Lord battle. In the end, Knight Sorrow decided to bring his wife Lin Piaomiao and his son Yi Xiaoke. The reason was that the two of them were the most talented, especially Lin Piaomiao. She had awakened the sovereign bloodline and had reached the upper Divine King level. She was almost on par with Knight Sorrow's heaven-defying cultivation speed. This wasn't simple. If Knight Sorrow wasn't there, it would be a miracle in the Divine World's cultivation. Their son Yi Xiaoke was also quite talented. He had reached the Divine Lord level 100 years ago and was already a mid-level Divine Lord. Although he wasn't at the top of the Divine Lord battle, he had a bright future ahead of him. This time they were going to see the world. Moreover, this would allow the mother and son to get to know each other better. "Father. Tianye's Heroes Gathering allows feather gods and high gods to participate. Why are we only participating in the Divine Lord battle this time?" Yi Xiaoke asked curiously on the way to Tianye's territory. Night Moon's dynasty had just arrived in the Divine World, so there weren't many Divine Lords. However, there were still many feather gods and high gods. "We don't lack cultivation resources for feather gods and high gods. There's no need for them to waste their time participating in such battles. However, Divine Lords are different. Talented Divine Lords are almost considered experts in the Divine World. It's good to see more of them." Knight Sorrow sighed. "Don't just think about cultivation. You're already a Divine Lord. It's time to think about having children. You and your siblings are all extremely talented. I'm worried that I won't have a chance to have grandchildren." Knight Sorrow had always been a tough guy in front of his family. It had been a long time since he had expressed such thoughts. Hearing this, Yi Xiaoke said sadly, "Father, I didn't think it through. I've improved too quickly and delayed the important matters." "Don't worry, as long as we seize the opportunity, there's still a chance." Lin Piaomiao smiled knowingly. She didn't expect Knight Sorrow to say something like this. Truth be told, Knight Sorrow knew that his true self was about to leave the God world, and he was looking forward to having a grandchild. "Otherwise, I don't know when I'll be able to see my family again. Father, Mother, I will remember this matter." Yi Xiaoke was no longer a child, so he wasn't shy in this aspect. He nodded calmly. "It's good that you have such intentions. We're almost at Tianai City. Let's broaden our horizons this time. Don't let this matter affect your mood." Knight Sorrow said with a smile as they were not far from Tianai City. Before long, the three of them arrived at Tianai City under the guidance of the Divine King Bei Qin. After arranging accommodations for Knight Sorrow and the others, he had them rest for a day before bringing them to see Hegemon Tianai. When Hegemon Tianai saw Yi Shang, his eyes, which had been as calm as an ancient well, suddenly lit up. He sighed in admiration. You're going to become a divine king in such a short time? This cultivation speed simply makes the seat perspire with shame. Haha. Brother Tianai, you flatter me. Night Sorrow said politely. His cultivation speed was indeed astonishingly fast, but there was still a need to be modest. Hegemon Tianai had asked him to call him that all those years ago. Flattered? It's not flattering at all. Your cultivation speed is nearly 100 times faster than mine was back then. In time, no one in the god world, including me, will be a match for you. Hegemon Chenya's voice carried a hint of regret. How great would it have been if such a genius had appeared in the Xingye clan? However, the current situation wasn't too bad either. After all, the Xingye clan's territory and the Immortal Dominion's territory had a pretty good relationship. He was also indebted to Night Sorrow for recognizing his worth. Alright. Brother Tianai, have you cultivated a clone before? At this moment, Yi Shan suddenly sent a voice transmission to Tian Yi and asked. He wanted to know if Hegemon Tianai had been chosen by the autarchs of the Eternal Sovereign World and cultivated a clone, sending his true body to the Eternal Sovereign World to do battle. Perhaps the one in front of him was a clone. As far as I know, I haven't. Upon hearing Night Sorrow's question, Hegemon Tianai clearly hesitated for a moment. He'd originally thought that Night Sorrow's question was rather baffling, but now, a hint of uncertainty had appeared in his heart. This feeling of uncertainty made him a little surprised. However, this interlude passed quickly. Before long, Hegemon Tianai hosted Night Sorrow's family of 3 for a family banquet. This was a treatment that not even many Hegemons received. During the banquet, Night Sorrow asked Hegemon Tianai quite a few questions about the Divine King and the Hegemon realm. He received quite a bit of guidance, which benefited him greatly. His understanding of the Divine King's realm had improved. If he wanted to break through to the Divine King's realm, he didn't just need to increase his divine origin energy. He also needed to understand the Tao. For Night Sorrow, he only needed to kill more creatures of darkness to increase his strength. However, if he wanted to improve his understanding of the Tao, he would need to accumulate more experience and cultivate. It seemed like he was only one step away, but in reality he needed to spend more time than all the previous realms combined. The Divine King's laws and the Hegemon's laws were like crossing a chasm. Breaking through was akin to a carp leaping through the dragon gate. Lord Father, how long will it take for you to break through to the Divine King? Yi Shaoke asked as soon as they left Hegemon Tianya's residence. Although the Divine King existed in the Eternal Dominion, there was no Divine King who'd grown up in the Night Moon dynasty. This made many people feel somewhat regretful. In the 100 years since Yi Shaoke had returned to the clan, he'd always hoped that Night Sorrow would break through and become the Divine King. Upon hearing this question, Night Sorrow pondered for a moment before saying, "It could take millions of years, or it could be an instant. Perhaps your mother will break through to the Divine King before I do." Mother, you might break through to the Divine King before father? Yi Shaoke looked at his mother, Lin Piaomiao, in astonishment. It's possible. At this moment, Lin Piaomiao smiled and said, Mother's body has awakened a special bloodline. It allows Mother's understanding of the God King to be extremely thorough. It's just that there are some things that you can't express even if you comprehend them yourself. I can't help your father improve. In recent years, Lin Piaomiao had been very low-key. She'd only told Night Sorrow that she was about to break through to the Divine King. Even Yi Shaoke had only just found out. Upon hearing this, Yi Shaoke smiled and said, I have such powerful parents. Could there be a super bloodline hidden in my body as well? Perhaps there really is, but it's not certain whether it can be activated. Chapter 2838. Regardless of whether there is or not, I won't tarnish the reputation of my father and mother. Yi Shaoke, who was truly proud of his parents, said with a smile. At this point he sighed and said, I wonder how brother Xiaoluo is doing now. He hasn't returned for so many years. I'm also a little worried. However, Xiaoluo has experienced setbacks. His mentality should be more stable now. Nothing will happen. There's no time in the divine world. We just have to wait patiently. Night Sorrow said. He felt very sorry for his son Yi Xiaoluo. After all, Yi Xiaoluo was the same as Lin Piaomiao. His Dantian was destroyed and he suffered too much. At this moment, Lin Piaomiao, who had stayed in the Clear Sky Pagoda with Yi Xiaoluo for many years, suddenly said, Do you think the awakening of my bloodline has something to do with my Dantian being destroyed? Perhaps it really has something to do with it. Yi Xiaoke didn't say anything, but Night Sorrow said with some certainty. After all, he had cultivated the Nirvana rebirth technique before. After his rebirth, his strength had increased significantly. Lin Piaomiao's situation might be similar. At this moment, Lin Piaomiao's expression suddenly changed. I might be advancing again. Mother, are you going to advance to half-step Divine King? Hearing this, Yi Xiaoke said enviously, this is a good thing. Why does Mother look a little unhappy? Mother doesn't want my realm to be higher than your father's. I'm afraid that he will feel pressured. Lin Piaomiao transmitted her voice to Night Sorrow. All along, Night Sorrow had been the #1 genius in the family. She didn't want her, who had awakened the Paragon bloodline, to suppress Night Sorrow's sharpness. Although Lin Piaomiao transmitted her voice, Night Sorrow could clearly guess her thoughts. He smiled and said, Sister Xin, we are a family. I will only be happy that your strength has become stronger. Why would I bear a grudge? However, after you finish advancing, I have something to tell you. Now Lin Piaomiao's strength had increased even faster than his. While Night Sorrow was surprised, another idea popped up in his mind. That was to bring Lin Piaomiao to the Eternal Sovereign World. After all, she had awakened the Sovereign bloodline. Once she arrived at the Eternal Sovereign World, it was very likely that she would become another great help to Night Sorrow and help the Divine King forge a bright future. Good. Let's hurry back to the mansion. I can feel that the heavenly tribulation is about to descend. As Lin Piaomiao spoke, the tribulation clouds had already formed in the sky. Her tribulation clouds were even comparable to Night Sorrow's tribulation clouds. It wasn't just Yi Shang who was surprised. Even Hegemon Tianai was alarmed. As soon as he realized what was happening, he immediately used a heaven-defying technique to conceal the tribulation clouds from view. He reminded Night Sorrow and Lin Piaomiao, during the Tianai hero gathering, the juggernauts will all appear. Don't let them sense the aura of Zhizun. Otherwise, even I can only stop some people for a while. Thank you for your reminder, Brother Tianai. Upon hearing this, Night Sorrow's heart trembled. To the Divine King, the laws of hegemony were undoubtedly the most important resource. To hegemons, the sovereign bloodline was something they would risk their lives to obtain. If Lin Piaomiao's sovereign bloodline was discovered by some hegemons, even Hegemon Tianai wouldn't be able to suppress it. After all, if some hegemons were able to obtain Lin Piaomiao's sovereign bloodline, their future accomplishments would very likely surpass Hegemon Tianai's. This was an enormous temptation. Big Sis Xian, once the tribulation is over, it's best if you don't participate in the battle for the position of Divine Sovereign. Otherwise, the chances of you being exposed are simply too high. After pondering for a moment, Night Sorrow spoke up. At this point, he somewhat regretted bringing Lin Piaomiao along and putting her in danger. I didn't expect to become a half-step Divine King so quickly. It was an accident. Lin Piaomiao replied to Night Sorrow, then began to prepare for the tribulation. With Hegemon Tianai protecting her, Night Sorrow wasn't too worried that this matter would be exposed. As for Hegemon Tianai, he wasn't the least bit careless about this matter. He directly used the power of the Sky Split Tower to help conceal the commotion. From start to finish, apart from the four present, no one else knew what had happened today. After Lin Piaomiao successfully passed her tribulation, Hegemon Tianai smiled and said, Congratulations to the Immortal Dominion for producing yet another super expert. In the future, I'm afraid that the Immortal Dominion will completely overshadow the Immortal Dominion. There's no such thing as overshadowing between us. Night Sorrow laughed, then bid farewell to Hegemon Tianai. After Hegemon Tianai left, the family of three entered a private space. At this moment, Night Sorrow set up a defensive formation, then looked at the two of them. Next, I have something to say. You must promise not to tell anyone about this. All right. Lord Father, I promise not to tell anyone, not even my family. Yi Xiaoke promised. As for Lin Piaomiao, she didn't say anything. She only looked at Night Sorrow with a puzzled gaze. Night Sorrow, who had confidence in her, said, I won't hide it from you. Outside the Immortal Dominion, there's an Eternal Dominion. The Eternal Dominion is currently in a very bad situation. The Immortal Dominion is in danger of being destroyed. After cultivating the Tao of the Divine King, I will cultivate a clone. My true self will go to the Eternal Dominion to fight. What? There's such a thing? Then the sovereigns of the Immortal Dominion don't need to go. Lin Piaomiao and Yi Xiaoke looked at Night Sorrow in shock. Lin Piaomiao didn't say anything. Yi Shaoke immediately asked, puzzled. He felt that if the eternal dominion really existed, the sovereigns would be the first to bear the brunt, not his father. Hearing this, Night Sorrow explained, at the eternal dominion, the sovereign's influence isn't that great. That's the world of the sovereigns. The main thing is talent, not current realm. After Yi Shang finished his explanation, he said to Yi Shaoke, Father means to bring your mother along as well. Therefore this matter can't be hidden from you. Father, I want to go too. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Yi Shaoke's heart immediately surged with a strong desire to fight. Father also wants to bring you along, but your mission hasn't been completed yet. Therefore you can't go. Night Sorrow completely understood his son's feelings of wanting to go to the eternal dominion, but he couldn't bear to part with him. Therefore he used the matter of the remaining children as an excuse to stop him. Alright. I will work hard. Yi Shaoke, who knew what Night Sorrow meant, didn't argue and agreed softly. As for Lin Piaomiao, after hearing Night Sorrow's words, she said to Yi Shaoke, Shaoke, your father means that we will cultivate a clone and use our true selves to go there. You don't have to worry about not being able to see us. Currently, the Immortal Dominion's position in the Immortal Dominion is becoming more and more stable. I want to experience the Eternal Dominion and improve my strength as soon as possible. Chapter 28-39. I understand what you're thinking. Night Sorrow nodded and continued, just like staying in the lower realm, your strength definitely won't improve as fast as ascending to the divine realm. Going to the eternal supreme realm definitely has an advantage in terms of strength improvement. At this point, Night Sorrow looked at Yi Shaoke with a serious expression and said, but in reality, going to the eternal supreme realm, even the divine king is an ant-like existence that can be smacked to death at any time. Only after advancing to the Juggernaut level will you have a certain level of combat ability. The ones who decide the real battle are the Supremes, and those who surpass the Supremes. If you insist on going with the strength of a Godlord, you'll actually be a burden. You won't even have the chance to leave the Divine Realm cities. Father, I understand. Hearing Night Sorrow's words, Yi Shaoke suddenly understood something. That was, if it was suitable for a Godlord to go, Night Sorrow might have already left for the Eternal Supreme Realm. No, he had to wait until the Divine King level. After all, Night Sorrow advancing to the Divine King level was equivalent to an ordinary cultivator advancing to the Juggernaut level. It's good that you understand. Don't worry, we'll have the chance to go in the future. Night Sorrow smiled and patted Yi Shaoke's shoulder. Then he looked at Lin Piaomiao and said, in fact, even if we go with the Divine King level, it's already a lot earlier. Normally we should wait until the Juggernaut level before going. It's okay. I believe that after advancing to the Divine King level, your strength won't be inferior to an ordinary Juggernaut. Lin Piaomiao smiled and continued, my husband, you've occupied the Divine Feather list and High Divine list. Now you're ranked second on the Divine Sovereign list. I wonder if you'll be able to take first place this time. I wonder if Divine Lord Li Yuan will come, but the so-called top isn't too important. Night Sorrow said with a smile and continued, let's go and watch the battle between the Divine Feather and High God levels. The battle between the Divine Lords will be held at the end. Okay, let's go. But husband, I heard that the top of the Divine Realms rankings will be enveloped by the Divine Realms Providence. You need to pay attention to this matter. Lin Piaomiao said with a serious expression. He only found out about this after he had awakened his sovereign bloodline. Good. If there is a chance, I will try my best to fight for it. Night Sorrow nodded and brought his family to the battleground to watch the battle between the Feather Gods. After a few days of battles, nothing much happened. In the end, a Feather God from Dominator Qing Yin's residence took first place. Although the competition wasn't all that interesting, Night Sorrow saw quite a few familiar faces, including Hegemon Voiceless. While chatting with Hegemon Voiceless Sound could tell that Night Sorrow was on the verge of breaking through to the Divine King level. She gifted him with a cultivation manual of the Divine King. In the God world, such insights were generally not divulged to outsiders. For Hegemon Voiceless to give them to him was a huge favor to Night Sorrow. As for the battles between high gods, they were much more exciting than those at the Feather God level. This was especially true after advancing to the quarterfinals. Everyone moved to the central arena. Under the watchful eyes of the many sovereigns, the contestants seemed to be on steroids. Every single one of them used their most powerful techniques, and the battles were extremely intense. Even Yi Shan's blood was boiling as he watched the first 3 battles of the top 8. Although the 6 contestants didn't have the ability he had when he was at the high god level, the battle intent they erupted with wasn't inferior at all. Lin Piaomiao and Yi Xiaoke also watched with great interest. However, when the 4th contestant went up, Night Sorrow, Lin Piaomiao, and Yi Xiaoke's expressions all changed. Because the contestant who went up was actually Yi Xiaoluo, whom they missed dearly. The current Yi Xiaoluo's cultivation realm wasn't bad. He had already reached the peak of High God, which was the half-step Divine Lord level. His aura was also very stable. Clearly his strength wasn't bad. But what made the 3 of them change their expressions was that Yi Xiaoluo had actually shaved his head. That bald appearance showed that he had joined a Buddhist sect. This was something that Night Sorrow couldn't accept. Night Sorrow's attitude towards the Heavenly Buddha Zone had always been to keep a respectful distance from it. Now that he saw Yi Xiaoluo's appearance, he immediately stood up from the spectator stand and shouted, "Xiaoluo!" He originally wanted to shout something but didn't say it out loud. When Yi Xiaoluo heard Night Sorrow's shout, he looked at Night Sorrow like everyone else, but didn't respond at all. "Xiaoluo, what's wrong with you?" How could Night Sorrow accept that his son Yi Xiaoluo didn't recognize him after meeting him? He immediately shouted, "You don't even recognize your father." "Father? He is a monk. Once he's done with his past, he doesn't have parents." Yi Xiaoluo said with a deep expression. "Oh, Xiaoluo's situation is very wrong. It seems like he's been enlightened by someone." Lin Piaomiao immediately said after seeing Yi Xiaoluo's situation. The Yi family valued friendship the most. Even if Yi Xiaoluo had joined a Buddhist sect, it was impossible for him to not recognize his parents. "Oh, who enlightened Xiaoluo?" Night Sorrow's heart ached when he saw Yi Xiaoluo's appearance. He immediately flew up to the arena. The referee for this match was a high-level divine lord from the Tianai Dominator Manor. He knew that Night Sorrow had a good relationship with the Tianai Dominator, so he didn't chase him away. At this moment, a monk wearing a kasaya chuckled as he flew up from below the arena. He cupped his hands at Night Sorrow and said, "I'm Li Yuan. Greetings to Divine Lord Night Sorrow. He is my disciple. I don't care if you are Divine Lord Li Yuan or someone else. Let Xiaoluo return to normal immediately. Otherwise I'll kill you." Night Sorrow roared furiously when Yi Xiaoluo had been enlightened to the point that he didn't even recognize his parents. "Night Sorrow, are you provoking the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area?" One of the divine kings in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area immediately roared when he saw Night Sorrow roar. This roar was mixed with the Heavenly Buddha voice, so it was no different from a divine king's spiritual attack. "Provoking the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area? You enlighten my son to the point that he can't even recognize a ghost. How dare you say that I, Night Sorrow, am provoking you?" Night Sorrow, who had fused his spiritual soul with the divine king in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area, roared softly with a dragon's roar. "Let me tell you, including the Heavenly Buddha Dominator, if you don't give Night Sorrow an explanation today, there will come a day when I will destroy your Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area." He didn't look at the divine king in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area when he roared these words. Instead, he glared directly at the Heavenly Buddha Dominator. "Junior, you are too arrogant." The Heavenly Buddha Dominator chuckled at Night Sorrow's roar. "Yi Xiaoluo has an affinity with the Buddha. Why are you so stubborn? I'm no match for you now, but don't let anyone in the Heavenly Buddha Dominator's area meet me in a battle between divine lords. As for Xiaoluo, I'm taking him away." Night Sorrow looked at the Heavenly Buddha Dominator and said coldly. Then he took Yi Xiaoluo under his control and sent him into the Clear Sky Pagoda. He used the power of merit to cleanse his spiritual soul. Chapter 2840. Although the Blessed Buddha ruler had a good reputation, Night Sorrow couldn't tolerate this at all. In the territory ruled by the Heavenly Buddhas, it was fine to convert others, but it was definitely not going to work on his family members. You can take him away, but if you threaten him, take him back. The Blessed Buddha ruler didn't say anything, but the divine King Li Yuan looked at Night Sorrow unwillingly. To him, being able to convert Yi Xiaoluo was like having an extra life. Now that Yi Xiaoluo was saved by his father, Night Sorrow, in front of all the important figures in the God realm, if he tried to stop him, he would lose all face in the Blessed Buddha ruler's territory. Thus he couldn't directly stop him. Although he was a Buddhist, he couldn't hide his anger. "So what if I threaten you?" After hearing the divine King Li Yuan's words, Night Sorrow immediately took the samsara halberd from his back and smashed it on the ground. Seeing Night Sorrow's reaction, ruler Tianai didn't say anything. Other than the blessed Buddha ruler, the other rulers naturally didn't say anything either. As for the Dark Moon ruler and the All-Heaven ruler, they hoped that Night Sorrow and Li Yuan would both suffer. It would be best if they completely fell out with the blessed Buddha ruler's territory. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to make a move, Long Wuxiu suddenly stood up and flew between the two of them. He tried to persuade them, "The two of you, please listen to me. We are all friends, so there's no need to make a big fuss. This matter is Li Yuan's fault. He shouldn't have converted the Yi family's disciple. Li Yuan, apologize and let it go." All along, the relationship between the dragons and the blessed Buddha ruler's territory had been very good. His appearance had the right to speak. "Senior Long, you shouldn't interfere in this matter. I won't tolerate anyone who tries to convert my son." Long Wuxiu was Long Tianqing's father, and he had helped Night Sorrow before. If it was a normal matter, he would definitely give face. However, under these circumstances, Night Sorrow didn't want to settle things peacefully. His family being converted had already crossed his bottom line. He couldn't tolerate it at all. "Haha, you don't have to interfere in this matter." At this moment, the blessed Buddha deity transmitted a message to Long Wuxiu. His tone was calm and composed. Hearing Heavenly Buddha's voice transmission, Long Wuxiu asked, "You don't usually look like this. What happened? How could he still allow his subordinates to recklessly convert Yi Shang's family? Don't tell me you don't know how great he will be in the future? Everything is predestined. This is the karma between Li Yuan and Yi Shang. They are bound to fight. When their battle is over, you will understand the reason." Facing Long Wuxiu's question, the blessed Buddha deity used a voice transmission to reply. "What do you mean? Why are you being so mysterious?" Hearing the words of the Buddha deity, Long Wuxiu asked curiously. The blessed Buddha ruler smiled and said, "Everything has its fate. Let's just wait and see." "All right." Yes. Long Wuxiu wasn't too satisfied with the communication between the two of them. However, he didn't say anything. He continued to transmit a message to Night Sorrow. "Night Sorrow, just follow your heart for today's matter. Okay? Today I will have a good talk with Monk Li Yuan." After Long Wuxiu communicated with the Buddha ruler, he didn't continue to persuade him. The other factions didn't have a close relationship with them, so they couldn't speak. Everyone was just watching the show. "Do you really want to fight?" Seeing Night Sorrow's anger, a smile appeared on Lord God Li Yuan's face. He glanced at the Buddha ruler and saw that the Buddha ruler didn't have any intention of speaking. Lord God Li Yuan's arrogance was different from the ordinary people of the Buddha kingdom. "Don't waste time. Let's fight." Yi Xiaoluo has admitted defeat in the final round of the God Ancestor battle. It just so happens that the two of us can fight for everyone here. It's also a warm-up for the God Ancestor battle. Night Sorrow, who was holding the Samsara halberd, was bursting with fighting spirit. Although he looked like a God Ancestor, the strength of his God territory was at the level of the Divine King. And he wasn't an ordinary Divine King. However, Lord God Li Yuan wasn't afraid of Night Sorrow. He smiled coldly and said, "In that case, Li Yuan won't hold back. You evil monk, show me all the tricks you have. What kind of ability are you to attack a child?" Night Sorrow couldn't suppress his anger after seeing his family being controlled by someone else. He released his God territory and enveloped Li Yuan's God territory. Being enveloped by Yi Shang's divine domain, Divine King Li Yuan revealed a cold smile that was not quite the same as a monk's. He said, "Then I'll let you experience what it means to be number one on the Divine Lord list." After saying that, Lord God Li Yuan released his golden God territory. The Buddha's light looked golden and dazzling. It was similar to ordinary Buddha's light, but it gave people a very strange feeling. It seemed to contain a trace of power that didn't belong to the divine world. At the same time, the Divine King Li Yuan immediately used the Buddhist lion roar on Night Sorrow. After he roared, not only was the sound deafening, but a huge golden lion also appeared in the void. After the golden lion appeared, it immediately pounced at Night Sorrow with an astonishing might. A probing attack with such might. As expected of the number one on the God Ancestor list. The move that Lord God Li Yuan roared out had almost reached the level of the middle-level Divine King. If it was an ordinary Divine Lord, he would probably be scared out of his wits by the roar. However, Night Sorrow wasn't too concerned about this move. He roared out Soft Dragon Roar in response. This time, Night Sorrow was inspired by Li Yuan's Soft Dragon Roar. He roared out a huge heavenly dragon that collided with the lion roared out by his opponent. When the lion roar and dragon roar collided, the might was simply astounding. Fortunately, the arena was personally set up by Sovereign Tianai. Otherwise, it might have been shattered. As for the audience, even though they were isolated by the array, they could still feel the might of the dragon roar and lion roar. Such might, and it's a battle between divine lords? It's not inferior to the two top-level divine kings. Long Wuxia, who had retreated outside the arena to watch the battle, couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, he had a premonition that if Knight Sorrow used the sovereign divine weapon in his hands, even he might not be a match for him. One must know that he was a super expert who was already famous in the divine world. His strength was second only to the 7 sovereigns. Thinking of this, Long Wuxia gave himself a shock. He thought to himself, if Knight Sorrow were to train a little more, wouldn't he become the 8th person in the divine world? The speed of his strength improvement is simply heaven-defying. When he saw that Divine Monarch Fate had actually summoned 5 otherworldly demons, Knight Sorrow no longer held back. He used the power of virtue to create 5 dragons and pounced on the 5 Divine King extraterrestrial demons. Although not all the dragons of virtue created by Knight Sorrow were at the level of the Divine King, the power of virtue was the nemesis of the extraterrestrial demons. Although the 5 dragons could not devour the 5 Divine King extraterrestrial demons, they could resist their attacks. For a moment, the situation was in a stalemate. You've been attacking continuously. It's time for you to take my attack. Knight Sorrow had originally planned to give Sir God Li Yuan 3 chances to attack. However, after discovering the extraterrestrial demons, he did not plan to give him another chance. He roared and used the Samsara halberd to attack with the forbidden reincarnation spear. After the taboo reincarnation spear was upgraded, it would cause a lot of pressure to ordinary high-level god kings. However, faced with this attack, Sir God Li Yuan laughed and took out a wooden fish from his Space Dharma artifact. After this wooden fish was taken out, it immediately emitted a heart-palpitating golden light. The power of this golden light was unbelievably strong. It actually swallowed all the halberd light of the Samsara halberd. After the halberd light of the Samsara halberd's attack was swallowed, only the power of close combat was left. Li Yuan waved the demon subduing pestle in his hand and blocked it. After blocking Knight Sorrow's attack, Li Yuan revealed a smile as if he had everything under control. He said, "Looks like you can't do anything to me without using the sovereign divine weapon. Is that so? Then you can try." Knight Sorrow knew that Li Yuan was trying to provoke him. However, he did not want to use the sovereign divine weapon when fighting against a cultivator of the same level. He felt that it would be an insult to himself. Gentle Dragon Roar. After his attack was blocked by Li Yuan, Knight Sorrow realized that Li Yuan was not simple. He seemed to have a lot of divine weapons and secret treasures. This time, Knight Sorrow directly used the Dragon Roar to attack the 5 souls of the extraterrestrial demons in the void. The 5 souls of the extraterrestrial demons in the void were in a stalemate with the power of merit. Knight Sorrow suddenly used the gentle Dragon Roar and immediately changed the battle situation, scattering one of the souls. The soul of the extraterrestrial demon that exploded was completely black in Knight Sorrow's eyes. However, it was gold in the eyes of others. Even ordinary sovereigns could not see the true color of these extraterrestrial demons. You've gone too far. After Knight Sorrow destroyed one of the extraterrestrial demon's souls, the array formation was also damaged. Sir God Li Yuan immediately became angry. He took out another secret treasure from his spatial artifact. This secret treasure was a damaged small bowl. The small bowl carried a trace of sovereign divine weapons aura. This sovereign divine weapons aura contained obvious Buddhist power. Buddhist sovereign divine weapons aura? Originally, Knight Sorrow thought that Sir God Li Yuan was a spy sent by the extraterrestrial demons to the divine world. His methods basically came from the extraterrestrial demons. Now he understood. Not only was Sir God Li Yuan proficient in some of the extraterrestrial demons' methods, he also mastered many of the Buddhist kingdom's methods. As such, he was even more difficult to deal with. You still dare to be absent-minded in the middle of a battle. Benefactor Knight, you have to be careful. Just as Yi Shang was pondering how to proceed, Celestial Lord Li Yuan threw the small bowl in his hand at him. When Sir God Li Yuan threw the small bowl, it looked like a fight between ordinary people. However, the pressure it gave off was close to that of a sovereign divine weapon. Although Sir God Li Yuan's God essence power, soul power and physical strength were weaker than Night Sorrow's, he could use a large number of secret treasures to fight. Moreover, his face was filled with confidence. It was obvious that he had other trump cards. Lord Night Sorrow, let me deal with this broken bowl. It's a damaged sovereign divine weapon. Night Sorrow was still thinking about how to deal with this method when little Tian, who had been attacked by the Clear Sky Pagoda, transmitted a message to him. He wanted to use Tianyun Bao's power to stop the small bowl's attack. No need. If it was an opponent of the same level, Night Sorrow would never use his sovereign divine weapon without using a true sovereign divine weapon. Facing the small bowl's attack that was close to the sovereign divine weapon, he immediately used the Treastrimsa battle mystic technique and dodged it with the dragon swimming steps. Chapter 2842. During the fight, Night Sorrow was in a sorry state. However, he gritted his teeth and didn't use the Tianyun Bao. This was his dignity as a cultivator. Divine Lord Li Yuan could use the damaged sovereign divine weapon when he wasn't strong enough. In Night Sorrow's eyes, this was an ability. He had to rely on his own strength to break it. If he had to use the Tianyun Bao against a divine lord, his Dao heart wouldn't be able to protect himself. If you don't use the sovereign divine weapon, you're definitely not my match. After gaining the upper hand, Divine Lord Li Yuan immediately smiled arrogantly. He was completely different from an ordinary monk. That's not necessarily true. Night Sorrow, who was fighting against the small bowl, was clearly at a disadvantage and suffered some injuries. During the fight he kept thinking of countermeasures. He wanted to understand why he was suppressed by the small bowl in front of him. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow felt that it was because he didn't understand enough of the sovereign divine weapon's power. During the fight, he used the Sea Serpent's Eye to observe the rules of the small bowl's attack. After understanding the rules contained within, the fight gradually became easier. It wasn't as difficult as before. Oh no. He seems to be able to see through the divine weapon's attack. I can't let him have an easy time. Seeing that Night Sorrow was gradually adapting to the small bowl's attack, Divine Lord Li Yuan immediately waved his demon-subduing pestle and summoned the remaining 4 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. They charged at Night Sorrow together. In this way the pressure Yi Shan faced was even greater. Good. Facing Divine Lord Li Yuan's attacks, Night Sorrow's anger was completely ignited. Night Sorrow couldn't remember how long it had been since he was suppressed by a cultivator of the same cultivation level. At this moment he exploded. All the power in his body was completely mobilized. His divine soul also completely fused together. While dodging the small bowl's attack, he waved his Samsara heavenly halberd and stabbed at the 4 divine king-level extraterrestrial demon souls. Buff. After 4 consecutive noises, the souls of the 4 divine king-level extraterrestrial devils were all blown up. Night Sorrow, who had completely erupted, was like an ancient god of war, unstoppable. He actually forced out his strongest battle intent. Sir God Li Yuan said hatefully in his heart when he saw Night Sorrow's behavior. Originally, he thought that Night Sorrow would choose to retreat in the face of such a terrifying attack. At that time he would continue to use his methods to make Night Sorrow suffer even more. However, he did not expect Night Sorrow to erupt with strength that almost surpassed the Divine Kings under such circumstances. That sort of horrifying strength was what the Divine Lord level Seer Yuan was completely unable to contend with. One force breaks all techniques. In an instant, Night Sorrow had a further epiphany. It was as if his entire being had gone berserk, entering a whole new realm. His combat strength caused all the Divine King present to tremble in fear. Some of the Divine King had brought themselves into this battle, only to discover that they couldn't even withstand a single blow from Night Sorrow. This made them despair. What sort of state is Night Sorrow in? Even the Dark Moon ruler was flabbergasted when he saw Night Sorrow's combat strength. Night Sorrow's strength had increased by so much just by relying on the increase of his battle intent. This was very puzzling. His state seems to be called invincible battle intent. Only those who are invincible in the world can comprehend it. The illustrious ruler said solemnly, apparently in a bad mood. Invincible battle intent. Invincible in the same realm? Then when he becomes a ruler, will he surpass all of us here? The Dark Moon ruler asked gloomily. He was worried about the potential Night Sorrow had displayed. After all, in the past few days he had targeted Yi Shang several times. Invincible in the same realm? Only if he has the ability to become a ruler will he be able to pose a threat to us. The illustrious ruler messaged the Dark Moon ruler, his expression grim. You mean to say that we should just kill him? The Dark Moon ruler replied. Given his talent, if he becomes a divine king, he'll be difficult to deal with. What I mean is that we should act as quickly as possible. The illustrious ruler transmitted, his voice brimming with killing intent. After saying this, she added, just like I did in the past, we should nip all threats in the bud. But Hegemon Tianai has chosen to protect him. If we act rashly, we might cause unnecessary trouble. The Dark Moon ruler's interest was piqued when he heard the illustrious ruler's words. However, when he thought of Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Clearsound's warnings, he didn't dare to act. If we act against Night Sorrow by ourselves, Tianai and Clearsound will seek revenge. However, if we contact a few more rulers, the two of them probably won't dare to act rashly. The illustrious ruler continued, I've heard that the ruler of all heaven and Night Sorrow aren't on good terms either. We can ally with him. The Seven Stars ruler's territory is adjacent to the Immortal Dominion, and there's constant friction between them. We can also persuade the Seven Stars ruler. Good idea. You go persuade the Seven Stars ruler and I'll talk to all heaven. The Dark Moon ruler's territory was adjacent to the Immortal Dominion. If Night Sorrow continued to grow, the Dark Moon ruler's territory would be the first to be affected. He didn't hesitate to contact All Heaven. The All Heaven ruler had just lost his true body to Night Sorrow and was furious. Even with the threat of Hegemon Tianai, he still agreed to personally deal with Night Sorrow. As for the illustrious ruler, he went to contact the Seven Stars ruler with a cold expression. Night Sorrow was like a god descending upon the mortal world. After comprehending the invincible battle intent, his comprehension abilities had improved. He quickly comprehended the laws contained within the small bowl. It seems like I've bumped into the Divine King's barrier. After comprehending the broken sovereign artifact's laws, Night Sorrow wasn't at a disadvantage against it. Furthermore, when he used Samsara to attack, he also added in these laws, which made Divine Lord Lu Yuan very uncomfortable. There's no other way. I can only use my final trump card. Seeing that the broken sovereign artifact couldn't suppress Night Sorrow, Divine Lord Lu Yuan roared in his heart and took out an exquisite jade talisman from his spatial artifact. When the jade talisman was taken out, it immediately emitted a tranquil glow. This soft, verdant glow seemed to be able to calm everything in the world. Even Night Sorrow, who was in the middle of battle, felt his fighting spirit drop after being enveloped by this soft light. When he saw the subtle change in Night Sorrow's eyes, Divine Lord Lu Yuan smiled faintly and tossed the jade talisman out. Not good. This is a sovereign jade talisman. After the jade talisman was tossed out, it rapidly exploded in the air. The enormous attack power was all directed at Night Sorrow. Even some of the sovereigns present couldn't react in time. The attack contained a boundless amount of black gas. This sovereign jade talisman had obviously come from a sovereign of the extraterrestrial demons. Lu Yuan, who had unleashed this attack, had a resolute look in his eyes and a smile on his face. Chapter 2843. How dare you use the extraterrestrial demon sovereign's talisman against a god realm cultivator in Tianai City? Hegemon Tianai of the Ethereal Mountain was the first to sense the talisman's aura. He immediately rose to his feet in anger and prepared to attack. Hegemon Buddha said, let's wait and see. After all, Night Sorrow also has a sovereign weapon. Hegemon Buddha, what's wrong with you today? Are you going to protect your subordinate even though he used a taboo technique? Hegemon Tianai wasn't happy to hear this. He felt that Tianai was being too protective of his subordinate. Hegemon Buddha chuckled. I'm not protecting my subordinate. Their battle is a battle of karmic luck. It's best if we don't interfere. A battle of karmic luck? What kind of battle of karmic luck? Hegemon Voiceless Sound, who'd been silent, immediately asked. Night Sorrow is the strongest divine sovereign of the god realm, while Lu Yuan is the strongest divine king of the Ethereal Mountain. Their battle is a battle of karmic luck between the god realm and the Ethereal Mountain. Hegemon Buddha explained, then continued, the most critical moment has arrived. We can only wait and see. How could your subordinate be the strongest divine sovereign of the Ethereal Mountain? Hegemon Buddha's words made many people understand why Lu Yuan was so strong. He was almost on par with Night Sorrow. However, Hegemon Tianai wasn't willing to accept this. He felt that Hegemon Buddha was going overboard. After all, Divine Sovereign Li Yuan had learned many of Buddha's abilities. Back then, he hid his extraterrestrial demon aura and snuck into the Buddha kingdom to cultivate. After discovering him, I made a few calculations. I discovered that he and Night Sorrow were key figures in the battle between the God Realm and the Ethereal Mountain. That's why I didn't expose him. I was waiting for today's battle. Hegemon Buddha continued to explain. His divination abilities were ranked among the top 3 in the entire God Realm. Although his explanation was concise, all the hegemons present understood what was going on. Suddenly, the way they looked at the battlefield changed. Li Yuan is the strongest divine sovereign of the Ethereal Mountain. No wonder he's so strong. No matter what, I can't lose today's battle. Deva Buddha's voice wasn't loud, but it was loud enough for everyone to hear. Even Night Sorrow, who was in the middle of the battle, heard the words, causing him to unleash an undefeatable battle intent and a strong determination to win the battle. Come on. So what if you have a sovereign's divine talisman? In the face of Divine Lord Li Yuan's ruler's rune, Night Sorrow, who originally wanted to take the attack himself, took out his heavenly cloud bow and shot out a heavenly cloud arrow to block the attack. Night Sorrow wouldn't have taken out the Tianyun bow if the other party wasn't from the Ethereal Mountain sect. Even if it was a sovereign-grade talisman, he was prepared to receive it personally. However, this matter concerned the fate of the celestial realm. He didn't want any accidents to happen. Boom. After the heavenly cloud arrow was shot, it directly collided with the divine talisman. However, it didn't completely neutralize the attack in front of him. It seems that this is a true attack from a sovereign. It's not easy to deal with. 5 elements arrow formation. After the heavenly cloud arrow didn't have the desired effect, Night Sorrow immediately shot out a large number of 5 elements virtuous arrows to form the 5 elements arrow formation to block Deva Buddha's attack. He knew that the creatures of the Ethereal Mountain sect were still afraid of the power of virtue. Old thing, so you discovered my identity long ago. So what? Today I'll win this battle for the Ethereal Mountain sect. The virtuous 5 elemental arrow formation that Night Sorrow shot out was very powerful and was the bane of dark creatures. However, it didn't completely deplete the sovereign-grade talisman's attack. Deva Buddha realized that Night Sorrow's strongest attack wasn't able to deplete the divine talisman's attack. He immediately used the remaining energy of the attack to attack Night Sorrow's body. You want to use the sovereign-grade talisman to harm Lord Night Sorrow? Have you asked for my permission? Night Sorrow's strongest attack was only able to delay the divine talisman's attack temporarily and deplete less than 30% of its power. When the divine talisman attacked again, Little Tian controlled the Tianyun Bao to meet it. Tianyun Bao, who had also erupted with his own strength, immediately blocked the attack. However, the current Little Tian had yet to reach the level of the Divine King. After forcefully controlling Tianyun Bao to unleash a sovereign-grade attack, he immediately fell into a deep slumber. Little Tian, how are you? Night Sorrow, who hadn't expected Little Tian to unleash such a powerful attack, immediately sent a message after realizing that he had been injured. However, the reply he received was a long silence. I didn't think that he would be able to neutralize the Sovereign's attack without the Sovereign's help. Not simple. The 7-star Sovereign, who had been silent all this time, sighed emotionally when he saw Night Sorrow use Tianyun Bao to neutralize the sovereign-grade talisman's attack. At this point, the hegemon sent him a mental message. What do you think of the matter I mentioned? I don't want to become enemies with the entire God Realm. Can't you see that Night Sorrow represents the God Realm's providence? The 7-star Sovereign replied without even thinking. Upon hearing this, the Sovereign coldly snorted. She glanced at the Sovereign of all heaven and the Sovereign of the Dark Moon. She felt that the 3 of them working together to deal with Night Sorrow wasn't a bad choice. After all, no matter how strong he was only a divine lord. If the 3 sovereigns worked together to deal with the Divine King, they would definitely be able to obliterate him. What? Aren't you happy that Night Sorrow neutralized the sovereign-grade talisman's attack? Hegemon Tianai suddenly snorted. Hegemon Majestic Hegemon snorted, and Hegemon Majestic Hegemon immediately noticed. No. Hegemon Tianai, you've misunderstood. The sovereign felt like he had fallen into an icy cavern when he was noticed by Hegemon Tianai, so he politely explained. That's for the best. Hegemon Tianai glanced at the sovereign, then turned his head to watch the battle. He had personally set up this place. Although it had been baptized by a clash of sovereigns, the damage wasn't very serious. This was a completely miraculous feat. The other sovereigns could clearly sense just how powerful Hegemon Tianai was. Kill. I'll definitely kill you today. When Divine Lord Li Yuan saw Night Sorrow use the Sovereign's body to block the Divine Talisman's attack, a savage look appeared on his face. Moreover, he had already exposed his identity and knew that it would be very difficult for him to escape unscathed. He was prepared to put his life on the line. If you want to kill me, you won't be able to do so unless you bring out some true skill. Prepare to die. At this moment, Night Sorrow felt like he was representing the God realm in battle. In fact, his invincible will to do battle increased even further. Using the Samsara halberd, he unleashed the most tyrannical attack in history, the forbidden Samsara spear. This attack didn't just contain the power of virtue, it also contained the origin energy of the God realm. He was prepared to instantly kill his opponent. He was going to use the providence of the God realm. Chapter 28:44. Very strong. You live up to your name as Sir God of Merit. However, it's impossible for you to kill me with such an attack. Sir God Li Yuan revealed an unprecedented ferocious expression as he faced Night Sorrow's taboo reincarnation spear. He recovered his original appearance and transformed into an extraterrestrial demon. After transforming into an extraterrestrial demon, he roared coldly, "Remember my name, Sky Splitter Demon? You talk too much." At this moment, Yi Shang, who had already attacked, interrupted him. To Yi Shang, there was only one name for the other party, and that was the extraterrestrial demon. Real Heavenly Demon Mark, activate. Faced with Night Sorrow's fatal attack, Sky Splitter Demon suddenly roared and activated the mark energy on his body. There was a buzzing sound and even the surrounding void vibrated for a moment. Then he threw a punch at Night Sorrow's attack crazily. From Night Sorrow's point of view, the power of the punch was close to the attack of a master. It was extremely terrifying. Rumble. After a collision, both parties retreated to the edge of the arena. Real Heavenly Demon Mark? After Sky Splitter Demon activated Sky Splitter Demon Mark, his power increased by almost 10 times. This surprised Night Sorrow. While Night Sorrow was surprised, the rest of the people at the scene were also confused. Basically, they didn't know what it was. You don't know about Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign? How ignorant. Seeing that no one knew what Real Heavenly Demon Mark was, Sky Splitter Demon instantly revealed a mocking expression. I don't care if you're Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign or Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign. If you plot against the realm of gods, I'll kill you. Many people at the scene sighed with emotion because of Real Heavenly Demon Sovereign's name. There hadn't been a legend of a sovereign in the realm of gods for a long time. Night Sorrow roared fearlessly and attacked Sky Splitter Demon again. This time he performed Reincarnation Spear again. However, this time he focused on Reincarnation Attribute. At the same time, he used Merit Dragon Locking Formation to bind Sky Splitter Demon so that he had nowhere to hide. Real Heavenly Demon Mark. The Sky-Slaying Demon, who was trapped in a sealed space, did not panic. He once again activated the True Sky Demon imprint in his hand. The True Heavenly Devil imprint came from the True Heavenly Devil Sovereign. The power it could unleash was immeasurable. After the Heaven-Slaying Demon unleashed its power once again, the Heaven-Slaying Demon's body emitted an endless amount of black light. After the black light burst out, it once again faced Night Sorrow's attack. This time the collision between the two of them ended in a tie again. Why is the utmost exalted imprint only this powerful? The Heaven-Slaying Demon was astonished by this result. He felt that the Paragon's imprint should be able to unleash an attack that surpassed that of a sovereign. That was why he had kept it as a last resort. Now that he realized that he couldn't do anything to Night Sorrow, he couldn't understand it. Your so-called Paragon's mark should have been damaged, right? I don't believe that it can protect you forever. Night Sorrow, whose attack was once again blocked by the True Heavenly Demon imprint, had no intention of retreating. He wielded the Heavenly Halberd of Samsara and charged towards the Heaven-Slaying Demon once again. At this point in the battle, Night Sorrow decided not to use his fancy spear techniques anymore. Instead, he directly engaged in close combat with his opponent. The Heaven-Slaying Demon had already used up most of his moves. The True Heavenly Demon imprint was the only life-saving talisman left. In the face of Night Sorrow's attack, the weaker Heaven-Slaying Demon instantly became flustered. As for the True Heavenly Demon imprint, after helping him time and time again, it finally exhausted its energy and completely disappeared. The moment the True Heavenly Demon imprint disappeared, the Heaven-Slaying Demon's expression changed. He didn't expect that his final trump card would be unable to withstand Night Sorrow's attack and lose its effect so quickly. What's wrong? You don't have the confidence to fight anymore after losing your trump card? Knight Sorrow asked coldly when he saw the heaven-slaying demon's reaction. In this battle he represented the realm of the gods. It involved the issue of fate. Now that he had completely gained the upper hand, he instantly felt more relaxed. While the heaven-slaying demon was in despair, he attributed his failure to the true heavenly demon imprint. He thought to himself that if it wasn't for the true heavenly demon imprint, which wasn't as strong as the sovereign said, he wouldn't have used up the sovereign's jade talisman so easily. If he had used the jade talisman in a sneak attack, he would have had a chance of winning. However, since things had developed to this point, it was futile to say anything. In the following period of time, although the heaven-slaying demon tried his best to resist, he was still brutally defeated by Knight Sorrow. After killing the heaven-slaying demon, Knight Sorrow successfully obtained the power of virtue that the heaven-slaying demon transformed into. The power of virtue that the heaven-slaying demon transformed into was equivalent to 5 Divine King-level extraterrestrial demons. This was the perfect supplement for Knight Sorrow. Moreover, after killing the heaven-slaying demon, Knight Sorrow even received a slight reward from the realm of the gods. This was an unexpected gain. Yi Shang, you represented the godly monarchs of the godly realm and defeated the #1 godly monarch of the ethereal mountain sect. This is a cause for celebration. I will give you one chance to enter the Sky-Split Tower. You won't have to participate in the battle, Sovereign Tianai said as soon as the battle ended. He also ordered people to set up a table and chairs for Knight Sorrow. After Knight Sorrow sat down next to Sovereign Tianai, the Buddha Sovereign smiled and said, "Reality has proven that you are the one destined for the God realm. I hope you won't blame me for what happened today." "Aha, Sovereign Buddha, what are you saying? If you wanted to, you could have killed the heaven-slaying demon at any time, but you brought him to me. There must be a reason for you to do so. Knight Sorrow understands." Knight Sorrow replied with a smile. The Buddha Sovereign took out a sarira from his spatial artifact. This is the sarira of an eminent monk of the Buddhist kingdom. You might be able to break through to the Divine King level soon. Take it. Thank you, Sovereign Buddha. Knight Sorrow didn't stand on ceremony with the Buddha Sovereign's gift. He reached out and accepted it. Sovereign Tianai continued, "Knight Sorrow has just fought for the God realm and defeated the strongest divine lord of the ethereal mountain. Shouldn't you all express your gratitude? After all, even if Knight Sorrow is strong, the God realm is strong. I will give Knight Sorrow the song Swallow the Mountains and Rivers." As soon as Sovereign Tianai finished speaking, Sovereign Clear Sound took out a guqin and began to play it in front of everyone. Her zither music was as dense as a drizzle, but it gave people a soul-stirring feeling. Knight Sorrow had only heard a few notes when he was completely immersed in it, entering a special state of mind. As for the others present, they all envied Knight Sorrow. Sovereign Tianai sees him as the future of the God realm, and Sovereign Clear Sound is playing the guqin for him. Not even the other sovereigns have the right to enjoy such treatment. Knight Sorrow is truly blessed. As for the other sovereigns, they weren't on good terms with Knight Sorrow, but they couldn't possibly stand against the God realm. Linzazazis. At this time Yi Shan looked at Yi Xiaokei and said, "You haven't been in the Divine Lord realm for too long and you are still a lower Divine Lord. You don't need to force yourself too much in this battle. If you encounter a strong enemy, you must know when to advance or retreat." "Yes, Father, this time your son is following you to see the world. I never thought I'd be in the limelight." Yi Xiaokei nodded obediently. Before he came here he wanted to see the world with his parents. He didn't think that he would be able to shine in the battle of the gods, which was highly regarded by the entire God realm as a low-level God sovereign. Because his expectations were low, he wouldn't fight to the death. You have to control yourself." Yi Chang spoke a few more words with Yi Xiaokei before summoning Yi Xiaoluo from his spatial artifact. He rose to his feet and gazed at the numerous sovereigns present. "May I know which sovereign can help my son recover? Yi Chang will be eternally grateful for your help." He'd used his second soul to try to help Yi Xiaoluo recover, but it hadn't been very effective. He could only place his hopes on the sovereigns in front of him. Before the other sovereigns could speak, Sovereign Tianai waved his hand. The heavenly Buddha ruler laughed and waved his hand. "The extraterrestrial demon controlling him has already died in battle. He'll recover on his own. It's not a serious problem. It's like a strange cultivation." "So that's how it is. I understand. Night Sorrow relaxed somewhat upon hearing Sovereign Tianya's explanation. He sent Yi Shaoluo back into the clear sky pagoda. Seeing that Night Sorrow was done, Sovereign Tianai laughed. Let's go. I'll take you to the Sky Split Tower. The group arrived at the base of the Sky Split Tower. Hegeman Tianai said, the situation within the Sky Split Tower is very simple. You just have to charge upwards. Charge up to as many levels as you can. The higher you go, the more you'll be able to acquire. Once you reach the limit and acquire what you need, the Sky Split Tower's Paragon will send you out. Are you ready? I'm ready. Night Sorrow glanced at the Sky Split Tower, then nodded. The Sky Split Tower is a 5-sided pagoda. Each time it opens, 5 people can enter. This time, however, it's opened for Night Sorrow. This is an extra entry, it won't take up any of the spots. Night Sorrow, you can choose any door you like. After speaking, Sovereign Tianai opened the Sky Split Tower. Upon seeing that Night Sorrow could choose any door he wanted, many of the people present were so envious that their eyes turned green. However, Sovereign Tianai didn't give them any chance. He didn't even mention Night Sorrow's family. After Night Sorrow entered, he completely shut the door. After entering the Sky Split Tower, a misty space appeared before Night Sorrow's eyes. Moments later, a body of energy appeared and attacked Night Sorrow. After dodging a few times, Night Sorrow didn't sense anything special about it. He punched out, shattering the body of energy. The shattered body of energy transformed back into energy, which then flowed towards a corner of the space. Moments later, a flight of stairs appeared. Going up the stairs, Yishan went straight to the next floor. As soon as he entered, 2 more bodies of energy appeared and attacked Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow once more destroyed these bodies of energy with a single punch. Just like that, he continued to climb upwards. After 10 or so floors, the energy bodies guarding the floors began to display various attributes. Given Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes, dealing with these energy bodies wasn't a problem at all. In a single day he reached the 33rd floor. This speed was already a record for the Sky Split Tower. Naturally, his rating was a light blue, which represented perfection. The baptism he received was also unprecedented. Luckily, Sovereign Tianai and the others hadn't paid attention to Night Sorrow and had instead gone back to host the Tianai Assembly of Heroes. Otherwise they definitely would have been completely stunned. Night Sorrow didn't know about this. He sat quietly on the 33rd floor for a while, then rose and hurried towards the 34th floor. Night Sorrow continued to stroll through the next few floors. To him, the trials of the Sky Split Tower were nothing at all. Chapter 2846. The 64th level was equivalent to the second 31st level, but the pressure was much greater than the first 31st level. However, Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes had already widened the gap between him and an ordinary Divine Lord. Moreover, he had experienced a similar test on the Sky Cloud Staircase. Therefore, although he had expended some effort, he still passed without any suspense. After the 65th and 66th levels, even though Night Sorrow had surpassed all Divine Lords since ancient times, he still expended a lot of energy. After passing the 66th level, Night Sorrow felt that if he continued, he would run out of energy. However, just as Night Sorrow was about to continue, Sky Split Tower suddenly rewarded him with energy, replenishing his energy. After absorbing the energy, he felt that not only was his energy restored, but it was also stronger than when he was at his peak. After recovering quickly, Night Sorrow sat on the 66th level and pondered for a moment, recalling his experience on the 66th level. After organizing his thoughts, Night Sorrow's understanding of attributes had improved. He was also one step closer to the Divine King's realm. It seems like breaking through the Divine King can be put on the agenda. Night Sorrow was in a good mood and continued climbing to the 67th level. The 67th level was different from the previous levels. The first 33 levels were gray, but now they were pure white. It was a completely different atmosphere. After stepping on the stairs, Night Sorrow knew what was going on. It was still pressure, but it was pressure that targeted his divine soul. I see. After discovering the difference, Night Sorrow continued climbing. Now that he had 2 divine souls, his combined divine soul strength should have surpassed that of any divine lord in history. Moreover, it was very likely that no one would be able to surpass him in the future. The pressure on his divine soul was nothing to scoff at. However, as the real climb began, even Night Sorrow felt immense pressure. In the past, the Sky Split Tower was always climbed by 5 people, and many people paid attention to it. At this moment, Night Sorrow was like a lonely traveler, following his heart as he moved forward. 91. 92. After climbing all the way to the 97th level, Night Sorrow once again felt the pressure of the 64th level. Although the spiritual energy is powerful, it still consumes a lot of energy. Night Sorrow struggled to climb to the 98th step. He felt that the consumption of his divine soul was particularly great. Ever since he started climbing, this was the first time he had felt such great pressure. As he continued to ascend, Night Sorrow felt an unprecedented consumption of his divine soul, but he gritted his teeth and persevered. He thought to himself, there is no one who does not suffer, no one who does not face difficulties. I have to challenge my own limits. When he was halfway up the stairs, Night Sorrow realized that he couldn't walk any further, because the energy suppressing his soul was too strong. It wrapped around his head and divine sense C, forming a restriction, and his soul was like a blade. Night Sorrow's soul power changed its state, turning into a soul blade that cut in all directions, causing the boundless pressure to be unable to form a state of binding him, and he continued to move forward. Even so, he still felt an enormous pressure. With every step he took, the suppression grew stronger. This completely aroused Night Sorrow's tenacity. He threw his head back and let out a long roar, completely erupting. He even used the power of virtue. In the end, he successfully climbed to the 99th step. After successfully ascending to the 99th step, Night Sorrow was in a good mood, even though his divine soul was almost completely exhausted. He took out the heavenly samsara halberd and smashed it into the ground. Halberd in hand, he stood in place. At this moment, all 5 windows of the sky-split tower lit up with a golden light. Night Sorrow wasn't too sure what this dazzling light represented. However, Hegemon Tianai, who was presiding over the duel, felt his divine soul tremble. He sighed. Peerless talent. Not bad at all. I just don't know if you have the ability to challenge the final step. Did something happen to Night Sorrow? Hegemon Clear Sound, who had noticed the change in Hegemon Tianya's expression, immediately sent him a message. I can only say that Night Sorrow won't bestow upon me in the future. Hegemon Tianai sighed. In truth, he had fainted when climbing to the 99th step. Night Sorrow might very well have surpassed him in terms of talent. However, he found it hard to accept. No cultivator was willing to admit that others were stronger than them, let alone the number 1 person in the God realm, Hegemon Tianai. Then I understand. Hegemon Clear Sound smiled faintly when she heard Hegemon Tianya's message, but she didn't say anything else. Congratulations. You've become the 2nd cultivator to reach the 99th step. The first one was already unconscious when he reached here, so you're the first one to reach here. Just as Hegemon Clear Sound and Hegemon Tianai were conversing, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Night Sorrow. Are you the Paragon Tower Spirit? Asked Night Sorrow, holding the halberd of samsara in his hand. In truth, he knew very well that it couldn't be anyone else in a place like this. That's right, it's me. Would you like to know your own talent evaluation? Asked the Paragon Tower Spirit. Of course, please enlighten me, said Night Sorrow, intrigued. Do you know my evaluation of talent? There's no need to evaluate anything below the 50th step. The 60th to 69th step is excellent, the 70th to 79th step is mortal, the 80th to 89th step is earth grade, the 90th to 98th step is heaven grade, and the 99th step is peerless. As for the 100th step. At the 100th step, the Paragon Tower Spirit paused, then asked, do you still have the strength to attempt the 100th step? I can give it a try. How do I do it? Replied Night Sorrow confidently. I didn't expect you to be so much stronger than Hegemon Tianai. The Paragon Tower Spirit sighed, then continued, you can try walking all the way to the 99th step. This is a path that no one has ever walked before. Then, the Tower Spirit Venerable moved and made way for him. He bowed slightly and made an inviting gesture. All right, I'll give it a try. Yi Shang's heart surged with battle intent as he replied. He had a natural desire to conquer heights that had never been conquered before. But Night Sorrow had just walked up the steps when a wave of energy broke through his divine domain and descended upon his divine sea. What followed after was endless darkness. His surroundings were pitch black, and his body was surrounded by the smell of soil. Night Sorrow felt like he was being buried alive. Suffocation, pain, and helplessness attacked him continuously. He couldn't use any divine essence energy, nor could he use any divine soul power. He could only silently endure this helplessness. Helplessness. No, that's not me, Night Sorrow. I, Night Sorrow, am the divine king of the immortal world. I will never compromise. In the midst of despair, Night Sorrow suddenly roared and tore apart all restraints. Chapter 28:47. When the black-scaled lion pounced, Night Sorrow felt as if he had returned to the past. He raised the black spear with his right arm and stabbed it into the black-scaled lion's abdomen, passing through its back and killing it. After dealing with the black-scaled lion, the scene in front of him changed. Scenes of his cultivation flashed before his eyes. In an instant, Night Sorrow felt as if he had gone through the entire process of cultivation again. He felt as if he had ascended 90,000 miles. Then he suddenly woke up. He found himself at the top of the sky-split tower. You are the first cultivator to appear here. How does it feel to stand in the clouds and look down on everything? After Night Sorrow stood at the peak, the venerable tower spirit asked with a smile. Even Hegemon Tianai had only climbed to the 99th level. Now he had reached the 100th. I don't feel anything. Everything is calm. Yishang calmly replied as he glanced at the tower spirit venerable. At this moment, his state of mind was in harmony with all things. He didn't have many thoughts, unlike those who had climbed to the top. There was no uncontrollable joy, nor was there any shock. He was completely indifferent. Your state of mind is 1 in 10,000. Night Sorrow's reply was simple, but the venerable tower spirit's comment wasn't simple. Even Hegemon Tianai hadn't been as calm as Night Sorrow back then. Now, his state of mind was close to invincible. Perhaps it's because I'm about to embark on an extremely difficult path. Night Sorrow said calmly as he looked at the clouds in the sky. To him, reaching the top of the sky-split tower wasn't enough. He wanted to stand at the top of the eternal sovereign world and solve all the problems in the God realm. That was a danger that no one in the God realm could see, but it could come at any time. It was for this reason that his cultivation had risen so quickly. You're still young. No one can estimate how far you can go in the future. The venerable tower spirit didn't understand Night Sorrow's state of mind. He continued, now that you've reached the top, I can give you some rewards. For example, I can help you upgrade the grade of your divine weapon. Upgrade the grade of my divine weapon? My divine artifact should be very difficult to upgrade, right? Night Sorrow immediately handed over the reincarnation halberd. The reincarnation halberd was already close to becoming a dominator artifact. If it was upgraded further, it would become a true dominator artifact. Night Sorrow felt that it was impossible. After receiving the Samsara heavenly halberd, the tower spirit venerate smiled awkwardly and said, it is indeed very difficult to improve it. However, I can get rid of the impurities in it. Your divine artifact is made of decent materials, but your technique isn't perfect. You can improve it greatly. Good. Then I'll have to trouble you. Night Sorrow thanked him. The Samsara heavenly halberd was a partner that had accompanied him as he grew up. The feelings that Night Sorrow had for it were not something that Tianyun Bao and the others could compare with. He naturally hoped that the Samsara halberd could advance quickly. It's all right. This is the reward you deserve. I'm already sorry that I can't help you upgrade the grade of your divine artifact. As he spoke, the tower spirit venerable used the power of the sky-reaching tower to remove the impurities from the Samsara halberd. Because it wasn't being reforged, and because the sky-reaching tower had time rules, Night Sorrow left the sky-reaching tower only half a month later. By then, the battle for the divine sovereign position had already ended. Although Yi Shaoke had done his best, his strength was still lacking. In the end he placed 5th. He wasn't very satisfied with this result, but Night Sorrow and Lin Piaomiao both felt that it wasn't bad. After that, the family of 3 watched the battle for the Divine King in peace. After the battle for the Divine King, the 5 spots to enter the sky-reaching tower were decided. Naturally, none of these spots belonged to the Immortal Dominion. Thus, the 3 members of the Yi family weren't very interested in how high they'd climb. After bidding farewell to Hegemon Tianai and Hegemon Clear Sound, they left Tianya's territory and returned to the Immortal Dominion. Father, I heard that those with good talent can climb to the 90th level of the sky-reaching tower. How many levels have you reached? Yi Shaoke asked curiously on the way back. No weaker than others. When Night Sorrow had left the sky-reaching tower, the tower spirit had asked him to keep it a secret. Thus, he'd answered vaguely and didn't reveal the secret of the 100th level. Upon hearing this, Yi Shaoke naturally understood what it meant. He smiled and gave Night Sorrow a thumbs up. Father, you're truly domineering and mighty. You have to work hard too. Participate next time and fight for a chance to enter the sky-reaching tower. Lin Piamiao stood to the side and began teaching Yi Xiaoke. Being taught by his mother, Yi Xiaoke smiled and immediately changed the topic. Father, how's brother Xiaoluo's recovery? There aren't any changes at the moment, but since the heavenly Buddha said so, there shouldn't be any problems. Night Sorrow replied to Yi Xiaoke, then entered the clear sky pagoda to check on Yi Xiaoluo's condition. There weren't any problems with his body, but he'd fallen into a deep slumber. It shouldn't take long for him to recover. After Xiaoluo recovers, his strength should increase quite a bit. The two of you should participate together next time. Night Sorrow left the clear sky pagoda and said to Yi Xiaoke. From the looks of it, Yi Xiaoke and Yi Xiaoluo's talents were among the better in the family. Yi Shang was very much looking forward to their achievements. However, he didn't want to express it personally, for fear of putting too much pressure on his two sons. Okay, Father. What's your next plan? Do you want to break through the Divine King's realm in peace? Yi Xiaoke replied respectfully and asked. I'll go to the 9th Heaven Temple to look for the Heavenly Phoenix's 1000 transformation elixir and save everyone who's trapped. Night Sorrow replied. He was ready to go to the 9th Heaven Temple to look for the recipe for the Heavenly Phoenix's 1000 transformation elixir and the last ingredient needed for the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array. However, he hadn't mentioned the Heaven and Earth Concealment Array to Yi Xiaoke yet. While the father and son were talking, the family of three quickly returned to the Domain Master's manor. After arriving at the Domain Master's manor, Night Sorrow accompanied his family to dinner. Then he found an empty courtyard and practiced his spear with the Samsara halberd. After arriving at the Divine World, Night Sorrow was facing more and more pressure. The opportunities to practice his spear in peace were getting fewer and fewer. Now that he wielded the Samsara halberd, which had been completely purified, there was a great improvement. After practicing for a while, Night Sorrow was sure that the Samsara halberd was now the best weapon among the half-step sovereigns. Phew! It seems that the Divine King's realm is not far away. In the process of practicing his spear, Night Sorrow realized that he was getting closer and closer to the Divine King's realm. At this moment, the carefree feeling in his heart completely exploded. Like the wind, like a dragon. Samsara. Forbidden. Like the wind, like the dragon's spear. Chapter 28:48. This Wind Dragon Spear was something that Night Sorrow had come up with based on the attribute changes in the Heaven-reaching Pagoda and the changes in the Reincarnation Heavenly Halberd. Although the name was a little tacky, it was much stronger than the Forbidden Reincarnation Spear. The beginning attribute and the Reincarnation attribute. One was like the wind, silently moistening things, while the other was like a dragon, soaring in the 9 heavens. Good spear. The Fire Phoenix King, who was watching Night Sorrow practice his spear in the Clear Sky Pagoda, couldn't help but praise him when she realized that he had developed a spear technique that could crush the Divine King. The Dragon Sparrow King was actually very surprised. He felt that if Night Sorrow continued to improve at this rate, he would soon be able to fight against a ruler. However, after thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "The spear technique is good, but the name is still a little lacking. Why don't we call it the 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear?" 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear? It doesn't quite fit, but let's call it that. When Yi Shang heard the Dragon Sparrow King's words, he smiled and said indifferently. He named the spear technique the 9 Heavens Reincarnation Spear. Lord Night Sorrow, you said that you were going to the 9 Heavens Temple with me and the Fire Phoenix King? The Dragon Sparrow King continued to ask. He had never heard of the 9 Heavens Temple, but he understood that it was definitely an incredible place. Yes, I will naturally bring you guys along, but there might be unpredictable dangers there. I always felt that it wasn't simple, so I've been holding back this trip until now, Night Sorrow said. Xiao Tianxian had once reached the ruler level in the 9 Heavens Temple, which meant that the opportunities there should have been taken away, so the dangers there shouldn't be too great. However, Night Sorrow had a bad feeling. This feeling was indescribable, like a premonition. After chatting with the Dragon Sparrow King and the Fire Phoenix King for a while, Night Sorrow said, "Something doesn't feel right. Let me upgrade Tianyun Bao again before we set off." In the following period, Night Sorrow used up all his resources to raise Little Tian from the Divine Lord level to the Divine King level. After Little Tian stabilized at the Divine King's level and was barely able to resist a sovereign's attack, Night Sorrow announced to his family that he was heading to 9 Heavens Temple. Brother Night Sorrow, it's fine if you can't get it. Don't force yourself. Brother, the way things are now isn't bad. Mo Qianqian, who no longer had a human form, understood that Night Sorrow had taken the risk for them. Otherwise, with Night Sorrow's potential, he could have naturally advanced to the Divine King if he had stayed in the mansion to cultivate. Brother, if I don't help you recover, I, Night Sorrow, will have a hard time untangling the knot in my heart. Don't be so courteous. Seeing Mo Yuqian in such a state, Night Sorrow said with heartache. However, thinking that he might be able to treat the other party, his mood immediately became much better. At this time, Long Tianqing also walked over and slowly opened her mouth to say, Night Sorrow, I'll bring Big Brother Yuan and go with you. Senior Tianqing, you can't do that. I have a bad feeling about this trip. Although I'm not too sure what we'll face, it'll definitely be very difficult. Night Sorrow opened his mouth and said, rejecting Long Tianqing's suggestion. There was one thing that he did not say. He kept feeling that he would encounter a sovereign-level opponent on this trip. Otherwise, he would not have those feelings of panic in his heart. A sovereign is a sovereign. As long as I break through to the Divine King level, I might be able to fight. People grow in adversity and erupt in despair. It's time to start the final battle in the divine world. I believe that my destiny will let me hold on. When he was about to enter the immortal divine realm, Night Sorrow thought fiercely. He was prepared to enter seclusion completely at this time and advance to the Divine King level. Then he would cultivate a clone and head to the eternal supreme world. Therefore, this might very well be his main body's last time leaving the immortal divine realm. Lord Night Sorrow, where is the Nine Heavens God Temple? After leaving the immortal divine realm, Dragon Sparrow King asked curiously. In the prestigious sovereign's territory. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to explain. Right at this time, a hint of foreboding suddenly flashed across his heart. But looking around, he did not discover anything. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to ask, Fire Phoenix King, did you notice anything just now? I have a feeling of being followed. I didn't discover anything. Fire Phoenix King answered truthfully. Then things are even more not simple. If I didn't sense wrongly, then there's a sovereign following us. Night Sorrow opened his mouth to say a sentence and immediately increased his speed to the limit, using the profound heaven-roaming dragon step to rush into the distance non-stop. Furthermore, in several cities, he continuously used teleportation formations. After more than a month of shuttling, that feeling of being followed slowly dissipated. Shook it off. We have to seize this opportunity to head to the Nine Heavens God Temple. The irritating feeling of being followed disappeared and Night Sorrow immediately rushed toward the Nine Heavens Sacred Palace in the ruler's region. Xiao Tianxian had only told him the location, but the others did not know. Night Sorrow was not too worried that someone had set an ambush there. After rushing to the valley where the Nine Heavens God Temple was located, Night Sorrow directly entered the Nine Heavens God Temple. After Night Sorrow's figure completely disappeared, the prestigious Sovereign, All-Heaven Sovereign, and Dark Moon Sovereign appeared one after another. The three of them looked at each other, and the prestigious Sovereign said, If this matter was done secretly, Sovereignty and I definitely wouldn't have discovered it. What do you all think? Do you want to attack with me? I want to kill him with my own hands. All-Heaven Sovereign said viciously. He was still brooding over the fact that Night Sorrow had destroyed his doppelganger. As for Dark Moon Sovereign, he smiled and said, If I didn't want to attack him, I wouldn't have used a trick to conceal myself from his senses. Good. Then let's do our best to kill Night Sorrow in the Nine Heavens God Temple. The prestigious Sovereign laughed sinisterly and said, But after we kill him, how are we going to split the spoils? If I'm not mistaken, he has 2 sovereign artifacts on him this time. I want a sovereign artifact. If it weren't for my methods, he would have discovered that we were following him long ago. We wouldn't have had this opportunity. Before the All-Heaven Sovereign could speak, the Dark Moon Sovereign spoke first. He felt that attacking in the Nine Heavens God Temple was beyond Sovereign Tianya's control, and it would be easier to hide the truth. Comparatively speaking, he should be the one to take the credit. I also want a sovereign artifact. As long as we can get a sovereign artifact, we can join forces and deal with Sovereignty and I. We won't have to fear him at all. If the 3 of us join forces, we should be able to deal with Sovereignty and I. But if Sovereign Voiceless helps us, our chances of victory will be much lower. What I mean is that after we kill Night Sorrow and get the sovereign artifact, we immediately go to Sovereign Voiceless territory and kill her. As long as we can kill her, each of you will get a sovereign artifact. I don't want it. The prestigious sovereign said coldly. What? You still want to kill Sovereign Voiceless? That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.